alive, can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.
Well, you guys,
the two of you may be in misalignment about interracial couples.
Okay. So has anyone seen has anybody seen the interview that Vlad did and like the excerpt where he took the Kevin Samuels addressing the allegations that he was gay? Has anybody seen that clip yet? And on this conversation, I am definitely going to need people in the field of psychology to come to the discussion, okay? So immediately he's asked by Vlad, hold on, I'm gonna do one better. And it's interesting because I was just doing a live. I was just doing a live broadcast where I was talking about, goals for relationships, right? How you can come up with healthy means to establish a healthy relationship. Sorry. You guys are going to hear this feedback. It's doing its commercials or whatever. But yeah, literally, I just said that one of the really good questions would be to question the sexual orientation of the person that you intend to date. That would be a really good question to ask because it's a really important thing to know. However, I had no idea that would be Kevin Samuels' answer. So I guess I've talked to you guys a little bit and I've said it's been rumored that, or someone said, blah, 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 he's gay or whatever. But we can't say that there is no validity to a thing if a person has responded to the allegations by deflecting. Okay? And so I'm just going to let you guys, I'm going to let this play for yourselves, so you guys can get a good look at it for yourselves. Yeah, one sec.
Where you were online and it somehow kind of cut to a scene of a man. There was a man sleeping in bed and then it cut back and I don't know. It just doesn't really make sense to me at all. So maybe you could explain that video and clear it all up.
Okay. But before I do that, I'm going to just say, I said this the other day. And what problem do these people have with somebody being gay? I mean, I've said it last night. The LGBT.
Okay, so I got a question. So Kevin Samuels asked you guys that question. I have a question now. I've got a question for the men who are watching this video. And you are not gay. In the event that the accusation goes out there that you are gay, oh, those are feminine characteristics. Oh, he's gay. Oh, he's hypersexual because he just wants to smash a bunch of women to mask his insecurities as a man because he's really having sexual interactions with men. Now, don't get me wrong. These are things that really do happen. They are things that really, really do happen. However, how many of you straight men out here, when asked a question about your sexuality, how many of you are going to call for the defense and the assistance of the LGBTQIA plus community? How many of you? That's my question. I'm not sure how many men are watching, but I need you guys to share this content. And let's just see what's out there. Let's just see what's out there. See what kind of questions are out there. I want to survey the area. Also, women, do you feel like that's an unfair question? So I guess one sec. Do you feel like that's an unfair question for you to be asked? Especially when you're doing what Kevin Samuels is doing. So I want to I know because some people don't know who Kevin Samuels is, right? They have no idea who this guy is. Okay. So if you don't know who he is or what he does, then this can definitely be taken out of context. Okay. So, okay, definitely. So let's talk about this. Not a lot, Casey, not a lot. So if you're asked the question, are you gay? What's your sexual orientation? Who do you prefer to have sex with? Who do you prefer to be in relationships with? Any of that. Do you deflect, or are you a person who just answers the question and keeps it moving? Right? And I think Kevin Samuels asked a great question when he said, like, what's wrong with being gay? Right? What's wrong with it? If I'm a person who's giving relationship advice to heterosexual women seemingly that want men in relationships, but now those same heterosexual women are now my competition for those same said men that I'm also targeting. What's wrong with being gay in that context? Because here's the thing. The reality is oftentimes we talk about women not wanting to take advice from women, and we talk about limiting women's conversations about their sexual interactional patterns with their, intimate partners, right? We talk about those things. And to be honest with you, women do have to limit their conversations around what the valuation of sex and intimacy is with their partners. Women have to be limited in what they discuss with their friends because they're limiting the possibility that their friends are now going to try and engage in a sexually intimate and explicit relationship with their man, right? So, Kevin Samuels, we're not saying that there is something wrong with you being gay. We're just pointing out, calling a spade a spade. You're a man that's giving advice that's pretty harsh to women and also pretty unrealistic to women out here. You're talking about they should value themselves in one particular context, and that's really controversial what you're doing. So those women have a right to know the sexual orientation of you as a man, because essentially you could be the equivalent of them going to get advice from a woman. That's one of the main reasons. So, that's what I'm saying. What do you guys think?
LGBTQ community, y'all are on the clock, because the sheer amount of gay bashing, gay innuendos, gay slurs, hate speech against gays, why is that allowed to persist? Why is that allowed to persist against me? If you want to say that I'm gay, then is that not out of bounds? Is that not a protected group? So the people who keep saying these things, I'm asking, where's the LGBTQ community in this whole thing? Or is it okay when it's a heterosexual man and it's being used as a gay slur? So you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. So you're gonna have to pick.
All right. Okay, now help me understand this. Let me look at some straight men answers. Straight man answers, straight 100%. We don't link with the alphabet community. Okay. I'm heterosexual man, and we'll say that up front. Is gay an independent act, or is it a static state? Oh, that is a good question. I love good questions. Oh, honey, this is going to be a really good segment. So, is it? I think it's up to the individual. I think it's 100% up to the individual. But have you guys watched this? Like, have you watched his response? I showed you guys a little bit of his response, right? However, I have to say this. A straight man, right? You got to call a spade a spade. A straight man with no homosexual tendencies or urges or ideals around that, they are going to answer the question outright if you're asking them about their sexuality. However, Kevin Samuels makes a really good point when he says, are they not a protected group? Are they not a because there are a lot of terrible hate crimes that happen to people that identify in one way or another with the LGBTQIA plus community. Good God, goodness, that's good. There are a lot of people who identify with that community, and as a result of their identifying with that community, self-identifying with being homosexual or bisexual, transsexual, transgender, or whatever, as a result of that component, they are under scrutiny every day, and they suffer from hate crimes from other people who have a very closed mindset when it comes to letting them in. So now he's asking for this community to protect him. The thing is, though, what have you done for them lately? What have you done for them, Kevin Samuels? You ain't done nothing for the LGBTQIA plus community. You want to go with them and you want to run to them for protection when you feel like there are questions that are very difficult for you to answer because obviously in your deflection attempt, we have discovered your truth. So let's have the difficult conversation. He says the Black community has a problem with labeling people as gay as if the term gay essentially is a stigma. It's a stigma with it. It's a bad thing to be gay and be Black. I don't know. Whatever. But so he says that the Black community has a tendency to label a person as gay when they don't agree with them, when they're upset with them, and all that good stuff, right? And so what's wrong with us if, people aren't telling you that they're gay, that you're gay because they don't agree with your ideals, Kevin. They're telling you that you're gay because they saw a whole man in your bed, Kevin. And they want answers as to why this man was in your bed, Kevin, because you were switching your cameras, Kevin. You were not having a technological glitch, Kevin. That was not a Zoom screen, Kevin, because on the bottom of Zoom screens, Kevin, are the people's names that's in the Zoom. And also, it doesn't look like a whole separate screen. Kevin, nobody is stupid out here in these streets, Kevin. Come to the table. Come to the table, Kevin. A whole man, entire man, a man. A lot of man. And he did say, I want you guys to hear me on this one, because Kevin continues to say every single day, no man wants a woman who weighs more than him. So apparently this was a heavier man. So we all saw this man. We all see this man, and this man is obviously heavier. And Kevin, you're lighter. So you're making it make sense to us now. Now we're understanding where you're coming from now, Kevin. You're the person that we're talking to, trying to solve our issues. And the whole time you were the competition with your fine self, girl. So it says, if Kevin Samuels is gay, he wouldn't be equivalent to a woman giving advice. He'd be a gay man who is open about his sexuality, but he's not. If he's closeted, it's deceptive based on his position, demeanor, etc. Exactly, which is the purpose of the conversation around accountability. Kevin deflected in this interview with Vlad TV for a reason. He asked for the help of the LGBTQIA+ community for a reason. Obviously, he wants to be protected. You're doing... I'm going to tell you like my grandfather used to tell me, ain't nobody stupid. Ain't nobody sleeping. He accidentally flipped his camera to his opposite camera, and we saw a person in said room. And mind you, there are clips of images of Kevin Samuels being in this same space. So when he says that this is another person's home, that this is another person on Zoom, it doesn't make sense, Kevin, because this is your background, Kevin, on different occasions, Kevin, from your social media, Kevin. Come on, make it make sense to me. This is no virtual background. This is no green screen, Kevin. This is a whole man in your bed, sir. So these women want answers, and I'm here to get them the answers. So somebody go tag Kevin Samuels. A person is considered to be gay when they have a sexual attraction to a person of the opposite sex. They are sexually drawn to, not when they've had the sexual acts. Let me make that very clear. They are sexually drawn to a person that is the same sex as them. Okay, the same as we consider a person to be heterosexual when they are drawn to and attracted to sexually, intimately, innately a person of the opposite gender, opposite sex. And that could mean a lot of things now, considering the fact that we have all these additional genders or gender identifications, right? But still, we're just talking about the basics here. Basic mathematics, the basic algorithm says that you're telling these women that they don't qualify to be with these men because what? You're average at best. You don't compare to me, honey. That's what I'm hearing now. That's what's resonating for me now. And let me tell you something. I'm not an avid Kevin Samuels follower. Not because I just don't like it's not his delivery. I don't like his algorithm. So his algorithm doesn't make sense. For me, things have to be pragmatic. They have to make sense. They have to add up. So when you're talking about successful relationships equate to the equivalent of a successful relationship. Okay? Hear me, people, when I speak. No, sexually drawn to the same sex, period. You're talking about bisexual. Or sometimes we can say, depending on if that's not the thing that drives your curiosity or your attraction to them, we can say pansexual or sapiosexual, you know what I mean? But either way, it's not heterosexual. That's what's a guarantee. Typically, when they say gay, they're referring to men and not women, although they're synonymous when we talk about homosexuality. But I have no quarrels against the LGBTQIA plus community. Guess what? They all identify as that said community. They ain't trying to trick nobody out here in these streets. They know exactly what it is that they want. Have a pretty sound sense of self, actually. Hello, Mello. How are you? How are you? Make sure that you subscribe and like and share the content, okay? So let's go ahead. Let me go to these comments so I can see what you guys talking about over here, because I am here for it. I think that AAS was mentioning that what was her comment? Can we go back to her comment, producer? Can we go back over there really quickly? I know I saw something pop up on the screen. Okay, let's break down her comment. Said he'd be a gay man who is open about his sexuality, which he's not. I said that already. And obviously he's closeted and he's running for protection right now and calling for some assistance of the LGBTQIA plus community. I did watch this video all the way in its entirety. So I do, suggest you guys go watch it in its fullest capacity, right? Totally. But I'm just gonna go and click through a couple of more pieces of it because he did mention Kwame Brown. And for the very first time, you guys, I have got to say I'm proud of myself. I went and I sat through not all of Kwame Brown's skit or whatever, but I saw some of his content today. And I paid attention, very close attention to his hands. He mentioned something about his hands, and that kind of drew my attention in. Because I was like, well, what's wrong with his hands? His hands are fine. I mean, people tell me I have big hands all the time. I think his hands were bigger than mine. I don't play basketball, though, so I don't really know what you guys are, judging that up against or whatever, or his basketball career, but he has some interesting things to say. We need to establish a definition for gay. I think that would be constructive. I think that, to be honest, let me tell you something. I don't agree with the term gay. The only reason I use it is because this particular community within the alternative lifestyle subset culture has identified with it to destigmatize oftentimes the negative connotation associated with the term. I personally prefer homosexuality because that's what we're referring to. However, it's synonymous to homosexuality, and it's limited to males. That's the reason I don't necessarily agree with that, Let's see. Let's go back to Jermaine G's comment, men and women. If you guys have commented something and I have not addressed it already, just make sure you put a 1 in the chat box really quick so my producer can kind of know to go back and look for your name up in these comments. Men and women were created to be together. Anything else from that is a crime against humanity, and none of them should be protected. None of them at all. So you think that men and women were created to only be with one another, male and female. And, I got to go back to the predating of religion, you guys. Before religion, it was a lot of things going on. And they were socially accepted, Homosexuality has been around for a long time, just without the name. It's been the way of people, and the only time male and female would typically get together is to procreate, to bring children out of the equation. So I don't know. I think that many people that are anti-police anti-pride movement. My dog is just yelling to get in here. He's screaming. Okay. But yeah, so people who are anti-pride, anti-gay, they feel like, and that is their position. They typically feel like it's a crime against humanity, but it doesn't have to be. Just because a person is, and I've sat through an interview with a person who felt that way too. I'm telling you, he does. By the way, my dog is a part of the LGBTQIA plus community. He loves men. But so he like male dogs, not the females, But so the interesting thing to me is this, okay? We say because a person doesn't believe, speak, do, move in the same energy that we do, that those people are wrong, okay? Now, if we are to say that they are wrong, who are we to say that we are right, right? So there are so many different ways for us to be in this world in coexistence with one another. There are so many different versions of us that create individuality and differentiation amongst human to human being. There are so many different ways that we can react to the trauma, the experiences that are positive and etc. in our life, and we can shape the way we move forward. But what is not healthy is for us to not sit with and accept and move in a place of our truth, when our truth has a lot to do with the platform and the advice that we give, right? So if Kevin Samuels is going to be gay, I don't feel like, it's a good thing or a bad thing. His behind is not mine, and nor is his penis. And wherever they go and whatever they take in, that's his business. I do believe in minding my own business when it comes to minding business that don't mind me. His business is not minding me, because I am definitely what they call a cis woman. So I don't have those kinds of issues. If he's gay, he's not out here chasing for my butt. So it just is what it is. But I think that he should be honest, because what that does, it creates a very serious bias in a climate where so many men are coming out of the closet and we're closeted gay. So women looking for unbiased, reliable advice as to how to gravitate towards acquiring that man, they're going to want to know that you are their competition. You understand what I'm saying? So then we won't be pushing the question also about, oh, is he married then? We won't be asking that, because we'll already know what it is. It's okay. Be you and true to your purpose and your passion in life, whatever that is. Ain't nobody coming in your bedroom, Kevin, unless you put us in there, Kevin, and then you accidentally split that camera around, Kevin. So I'm here for accountability, Kevin, and we're not going to deflect today. No, we need a direct answer. So when you go to starting to say, well, they came after Kwame Brown and they called him gay. They said that these other people were gay. Why is it that we in the Black community always want to call somebody gay when we don't like them or we disagree with them, et cetera, et cetera? That's not the same thing. No. Women ask questions about you and your hatred for women, Kevin Samuels, at the beginning. But at no point were there, solid accusations made that you were gay until you gave the community everything that they needed on that show and decided that you was going to sleep on it because you missed it. Maybe you had too much wine, wino. You said, why are they forcing gay relationships and trans in school to our children? You know what? I addressed that in a separate video, but I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about it too, a little bit about it now. So there is this video that I reviewed on here, and it was sent to me by Money Boy Trey. And it's a Blue's Clues video, and it's got a really catchy jingle and things like that. And it talked to the different types of family of origin systems that children can come from. And of course, how many people know what Blue's Clues is? Type a 1 in the chat if you are familiar with Blue's Clues, because it won't make sense if I talk about it and nobody has an idea whatsoever who Blue's Clues is. Okay, so we got a 1 there. Anybody else? Nobody got kids? Okay, so we got a couple of 1s. Okay, so I know that if you don't have kids, okay, but I do know that if you don't have children, typically you're not gonna know who Blue's Clues is. But for those of you who did not type the 1 in the chat, you know, you maybe don't have kids. Blue's Clues is one of those preschool kind of before they get to school, and then after they get into school, they're really into Blue's Clues for at least up to 1st grade. Okay. What's going on, official urban therapist? But kids are heavy into Blue's Clues. I mean, so heavy into Blue's Clues that their whole room would be painted blue. And now I hear they got a pink one. I know, didn't they have a purple one, Kale? Yeah, but Blue's Clues is huge, you know. And some people, I'm not gonna lie, some people in the military community, while I was still serving, my kids were into Blue's Clues really heavy, but there was a thing about whether or not it was appropriate for us to push the narrative that children should be having this guy, this oversized grown man, playing with them, because children would see themselves as Blue's Clues, which is the character. He's a little dog, right? But he's a dog who's learning things, and his experiences are kind of going along with the guy, the male. And so I think I already drop the link, you guys, for those of you who want to be on the show? Okay, it's in the chat. But so Blue's Clues blew up. Okay, went from just teaching kids about their numbers, letters, shapes, sizes, and things like that, to now helping kids to acquire their arithmetic skills, adding, subtracting, everything. So Blue's Clues is a huge thing, and that's one of the main ways that kids, you know, in early education solidify the concepts that are taught in school. That's why we have nursery rhymes. That's why we have so many musical chair exercises and things like that, right? But that's how young kids, is how they learn. So now you got this jingle out here that's talking about trans families, trans mom or dad families, mom families, and things like that. That's the jingle. It's a thing. It's a whole thing, you guys. It's a thing. Like, it really is. Like, for real. Yeah. And so my only quarrels, you know, with the LGBTQIA plus community, or should I say the production team that put this out there, I understand that we were in the middle of starting Pride Month, right? I get that. But when you are trying to solidify the education and insights of young people, I think that you should be realistic, and you should be thorough. So there are a couple of things: realistic and thorough. So you should not be biased. Okay. And it's interesting because I felt like there is no way that a person that's a part or identifies with the LGBTQIA plus community, there's no way that they produce this and put this out there, because they're about being inclusive, not exclusive. You know, that's not what they're about. So for me, I feel like that particular video goes to the narrative that you're speaking on when you say they're trying to force gay relationships and trans in the school system on the kids. However, playing devil's advocate, children need to know that families look a lot of different ways, and so they don't have to be giving them those strange looks and caught off guard, if you will. Okay. So I'm gonna welcome our guests really quickly. Hey, urban therapist, go ahead and unmute yourself, introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hello, how you doing? I am the official urban therapist. I appreciate being on the platform again, like always.
Awesomeness. So we are talking about what, let me see that. My producer just sometimes, I don't know. Okay, there's the comment. So we are talking about this question. He asked, Jermaine G asked, why are they forcing gay relationships and trans in schools with our children, to our children? Now, and I think I had you on when we talked about that Blues Clues jingle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about that. We did a segment on that or whatever. And I feel like, as I mentioned then, the only quarrels that I have with whoever produced that material is that they didn't have a heterosexual family mentioned in there. They only mentioned the alternative lifestyle types of family systems. And that's sort of bias. Not sort of. It's biased.
Yeah. We both had mentioned that when we was watching it, because I was making fun of the catchy jingle part of it, which it's the jingle part of it is pretty nice, but at the end of the day, it didn't address nothing about a heterosexual relationship whatsoever, and so that's what drew both our attentions about it.
Right. And so Rainbow Rev says there are LGBTQIA plus children and teens. And I agree. And you know what? And in Germany, when I was there, what was that one? Like 92? In the 90s in Germany, right? And really all the way up to now, there had already been an established practice of doing gender reassignment surgeries for those people who felt like they identified with what we now label in the DSM as gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoric kids would be having those gender reassignment surgeries as early as 8 years old there. And some of them between the ages of 8 and 12, it was indicated that this was the best way to do it or best time to do it, because what do we know happens during that time period in human development? Puberty. So, and they were successful. You have some people that have gone through the surgeries there, and then they come over to America as a full-on male or female, depending on which surgery they got. And you can't tell that they've ever been the other. No Adam's apple, no nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this about old Kevin Samuels. We got to protect the manosphere at all costs. We got to protect Kevin Samuels. Y'all just heard us mess with Kevin Samuels about him in this man bag and him flicking his wrist and doing all these things. So, Kevin, leave Kevin alone. Leave that man alone,
sir. I'm gonna pull a Kevin Samuels on you, sir. Kevin Samuels in this video directly deflected and asked for the LGBTQIA plus community to come save him, protect him directly.
Yeah, you referring to the video with Vlad, right?
Vlad, yeah. I'm here for it. Anti-Afro says surgery prior to puberty is unethical. Well, every country operates under different ethical and legal guidelines. I have to say that. And I'm going to be honest with you, that changes from time to time. It's not always the same across the board, just like tax law changes. That's a far cry from, you know what I mean? But medicine, what's ethical and legal in the field is very different. We're talking about, come on, let me take you guys back. Okay. There was a time when doing lobotomies was an acceptable practice to alleviate the symptoms of one presenting as gay or homosexual. Hello? Can we say that that's no longer ethical now? But so essentially, You know, a split brain surgery is not going to change a person's, even though you're trying to target, you know, those pleasure sensory neurons, you know, and synapses and preventing them from happening, you know, when we talk about the neuroscience of it. However, that should have been unethical and illegal back then, but it wasn't. But I like to explain to people the science of medicine is one that's a continual science. It's an evolutionary science. That's why we're called medical practitioners. It's about practicing, right, with the know-how of our predecessors so that in our practices, we can track whatever is viable as we move along the continuum. And we say that these things are now more effective than what our predecessors discovered. Or on the flip side, not as ethical, not as efficient, not a good fit. We're not going to do that, right? So I think that we have to understand that that's the world we live in. And yes, we live in this particular here and now where we can look back and reflect and say, oh my God, that was just terrible. They're terrible people. But the reality is you have to evolve from somewhere. You know, just like Kevin Samuels. He's evolving from somewhere. Did you see what he said? He said it was a technological glitch. He was using a couple of software things.
Yeah, you know when I had watched that interview with Kevin Samuels, it did raise a lot of red flags. I'm just being honest. You know, I try my best to give Kevin Samuel a lot of passes, a whole lot of them. And I gave him a pass with his little man bag or European style bag. I gave him a pass with his sense of fashion. I even stated that, you know, well, he's not homosexual. You know, he's just a metrosexual. I mentioned that on my platform a lot of times, but however, that interview, him asking for protection through the LGBT, QRSTUV, WSYZ community, making him a little suspect now. So,
okay, I think I already covered anti-Afro, her comments with the last statement that I made. Let me know if you want more clarity on that, and then I'll go back.
Oh no, you're fine because I'm catching up too. I'm reading as I go as well.
but so what you're gonna do about it says the truth is we don't know if Kevin has engaged in gay sex or not. So who here has been here from the beginning of the discussion? Somebody come forward and let me know if you heard what I had to say about what gay means, what's homosexuality, what is homosexual. Who heard what I said about that? Because sometimes when we are conveying a message, the people on the receiving end do not receive what we intend to convey. And so in an effort for clarity, because you guys know I'm 100% about accountability, I will never redact anything that I say. Differences in opinions or perceptions are based off of what information we have in front of us at the time we have that information in front of us. So if you guys remember, or if you recall the video that I did initially on the whole Kevin said, and I didn't even really cover that part because what I said was, well, we don't know why that person was in his bed. We just know he was in his bed because Tanya TKO did a really good job at not only covering the material, but even covering the possibility of a technological glitch. Isn't that something? Okay. That is the craziest thing to me. This woman already knew that his out would be to claim a technological glitch. And let me go ahead and show you guys what it looks like when it's a technological glitch. She did that. She did a whole show on that immediately in the aftermath before he even woke up that morning. Hello. I am here for it. Okay. So it said, Miss Andia says you can call him anything you want, but you can't call him a liar and you can't call him broke. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think you can call him a liar because, like I said, a lot of things that he says have merit. But that doesn't mean that they have merit and validity in everybody's plight, because everybody's plight is different. And I keep saying that, like, Kevin Samuel's ideologies around relationships and sex, these things are not pragmatic. They don't make sense. Not to relationships that are long held and, viable throughout the entire time that people are together, period, point blank, because they're not built off of things that really even make a difference at the point where you've been with somebody for 10 to 15 years. So, yeah, what do you
Kevin? Yeah, Kevin Samuels, his the advice that he gives to people is based on his personal perspective. It's based on his experience in dealing with prior relationships.
Right.
Like I stated on my own panel as well, that he do have a lot of traumatic relationship experiences that he done dealt with in the past. And so what he do is that he manifests that onto his platform. I oftentimes call it being therapeutic when a lot of people, especially content creators, create them type of platforms to help them cope with whatever traumatic experience that they're going through. And basically, that's what he been doing. I know he started off first talking about men. Then eventually he started gradually, talking more about women, and that's how his platform really got blown up, when he was really focusing on more women than anything. But I can also say that there's another content creator who did something very similar to that, and that's Derek Jackson. His platform was therapeutic as well for him, because all the relationship advices that he was giving to women, at the same time, he was really projecting everything that he was personally going through with himself. With all the advices, he was pretty much talking about himself through the whole entire time. So likewise, it could be theorized that Kevin Samuels is doing the same thing with himself as well. There's a lot of traumatic experiences that he didn't deal with. And so now he's projecting that and using it as a form of, therapeutic, and a form as advice, and giving it to people to project this reality that he feel that women should be in. Now, I stated this before, especially with Dr. Jefferson, and we went back and forth on this. There are certain things that I do agree with him on. There are certain things that I don't agree with him on. That's depending on how he's saying it. In other words, But I mean, that's with anybody. So.
Okay, so here is the thing. I don't disagree with Kevin Samuels because he says things in a way that are offensive. That is not, I gotta say that. I really don't disagree with him on those things, because I really don't care about the delivery. I feel like the delivery can sometimes be abrasive, but necessary. And if it's necessary, the abrasiveness has no validity there. Nobody cares, because that person needs what they need, when they need what they need, right? And so they need to come out of those behaviors that keep them in a broken cycle of their becoming. And so essentially, I don't disagree with him because of that. You said you want to understand the urban therapist LGBTQIA plus XYZ comment. Oh, what he means is that it's a lot of letters, and we continue to add on. But we've addressed that in a previous video, if you saw that video. But I'll let him answer.
Oh no, I'm not answering, because that was almost like 10 minutes ago when I said it, and we're in a whole different conversation now. To be honest.
Okay, so, but I think that there is merit to what you were saying about him having the position, Kevin Samuels having the position of projecting his experiences onto other men, and therefore, but the reality is, I don't feel like he's projecting his experiences onto other men. I think that men, and he said himself that men were always his target from the beginning. He was always speaking to men, but he found a way to get to men now through another mean, right? So
I agree.
Yeah, he's used women as a means to an end. His end was to get to men. And now those men are following. They've created a whole thing of idealizing him. I think we have to call a spade, okay? And the spade is this. If Kevin Samuels is gay, he has a right to be as gay as he needs to be.
Absolutely.
He has a right to be as homosexual as he needs to be. But as Anti-Afro made it very clear, that second part of her comment that said, if he's in the closet, it needs to be made clear, because here is the thing. Like, you talk about him projecting his experiences. That's one piece. But no, sir, we're talking about these women are in direct competition with you, whereas you know that men are struggling very hard to maintain their sense of self. Oh, sorry, one second.
She's having a technical difficulty like Kevin Samuels. Bear with her.
What you're not going to see is a whole woman over there laying down on my couch in my office, though.
Oh, well, since we did mention that, I went back to that actual show when that happened, just to get an understanding. And so far, I honestly don't know. It could be that way, or it could have been him clicking on to somebody on the Zoom call that was laying in the bed, and then he quickly dismissed them like that too. It could be either or. So I don't know.
So what you're gonna do about it made a really, really great point. Okay, and here's the reality, right? Let me just say this about his technological glitch. Okay, I can't. I can't stop the madness. You know, my show is about accountability. What we're not gonna do is save and protect Kevin Samuels at all costs over here. You are not protected. You are not protected. This guy literally said out of his mouth, isn't that a protected entity? Aren't they protected? I protected. Where are they? Where are they in protecting me? What in the? Do you see the look on his face? He was serious.
No, he was that serious about it.
This is the thing. This is a whole thing. I need you guys to understand body language, facial gestures.
Yeah, what's even more interesting about it, and I was joking about this earlier, but I was also serious about the manosphere, because he's actually protected by the manosphere.
Exactly.
So why do he need additional protection through the LGBT community? That's why I say it's kind of looking a little suspect now. Trying to get a bro a pass, but at the same time, I don't know, bro. I don't know.
So Jermaine G, what do you feel? What do you feel needs to be done, and why? Because I'm curious. I'm curious. Like, what do the LGBTQIA plus community? What do they do that interrupts your lifestyle, your way of living, being, etc.? I'm curious about that, because here's the thing. When I try to understand people in their homosexual and their homophobia and things like that, it was interesting because we have a section of the DSM that covers phobia. Mm-hmm. And what's his name? What's that guy's name? The one with all the lies? Umar. Yeah,
Dr. Umar.
Yeah. So he said at some point during one of his speeches, he was like, well, let's look at it at its core or something like that. And he was like, so we're talking about a phobia. So that means that I'm in fear of something, right? So the thing that I talked about is that fear exists in so many different ways. The way that we interact, the things that we do can definitely demonstrate that we have a sense of fear inside of us. The way that we respond to people that are different than us says that we fear something. And so we don't have to fear them physically because we're a big, strong, masculine male, right? Mm-hmm. Get out of here. You can still be afraid that these people are going to come in and swoop up what it is that you see as yours, right? And I talk about that when I talk about couples healing from infidelity, right? In infidelity recovery when they come to me for therapy, because we have this mindset, and that's one of the things that's at the root of Kevin Samuels theorizing, right? We have this mindset that because men are typically the ones who are more promiscuous after they get married, right? They can exercise their options and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
No.
that's true.
No. Women and men both cheat in relationships from time to time, but them cheating in a relationship has nothing to do with their financial stability in a relationship or their positioning in a relationship. Cheating, right? Acts of betrayals, regardless of what they are due to marital distress and discord. There is something inside of the housing, the foundation of the relationship that is not going right. And let me tell you something, the leading cause is a failure to convey or communicate what it is when it comes to clear expectations and boundaries. That's the problem I have with Kevin Samuels. He is conditioning these men, these Black men that are a part of Black society. He's conditioning them to think that in their minds, not only in their minds, but the way they move, they see themselves in this life, the way they self-actualize, that their value lies within their pockets, their finances, and that's it. Women don't bring anything to the table. What are you willing to do to get this thing? What are you gonna bring to the table? I'm gonna bring my damn conversation. What do you mean? But so I think that these misinformation components that exist in his narrative of what makes a woman viable for a man viable for a woman, right? High value, what the valuation components are. When you talk about that stuff, a man is not a high value man if the content of his character looks like shit. Okay? A woman is not a high value woman if the content of her character looks like shit. That's the reality. Hello? That's the reality. And he's telling you guys and conditioning you guys to get yourself set up for failure from the very beginning. So, Ms. Sunday says, men are following him because he's saying what men can't say. He's the voice for all men. He's not gay. The haters just don't have anything else to attack him on. So you think, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to the pragmatics of this thing, okay? At no point, and I'm an avid person who will tell you outright, I don't like Kevin Samuels. Guess what? Even when that video was aired, I held my composure. You know what I said is, that could be his brother. I just knew he wasn't gonna feed into what this Tanya TKO girl, she's so extra. Oh God, she's just so extra. She's just filled with drama. She's a liar. That's what I kept telling myself. This guy's not gay. He's just well dressed. He's metrosexual. He's just really good looking guy in a suit.
Well,
I don't have the same energy today.
Well, for us, her comment, I agree with some of it that she's saying, and other parts of it, I don't agree with it. Now, the part that she was talking, is that a she or a dude? But anyway, the part that they was talking about that men don't follow him because he's saying what men can't say. All due respect, they'll want to make it seem like every man is a beta male. They can't speak for themselves.
Exactly.
I'm not a beta male. I say wherever I want to say, whenever I want to say it, regardless if it's a man, woman, or whatever. If the whole point of it is that some men are afraid of the form of rejection that comes behind it. That's how the way I view it as. So if a woman reject a man, then a man sometimes will get up in their feelings about it instead of accepting it for what it is. If that's your absolute reality, how the way you feel, that's what it is, but you can't expect people to accept it, period. If they don't accept it, they just don't accept it, but that's still who you are. Now, the other part about it, about, for us, he's not gay, and people just attacking that. We didn't have this conversation about this too. For us, what they do with content creators, I do agree with there are people out there, there are trolls. They'll find any type of reason to try to debunk the argument by slandering the person's personal character. I absolutely do not agree with that at all. Period.
So wait, you agree that that's happening in this case? Like in other cases, I probably would have been on board. Like before now, I would have been on board. Like before now.
Well, this situation, I'm not saying this particular podcast situation. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that other situations, a lot of people was said about it. Matter of fact, the whole gay theory came behind a woman and a man stating that because they just didn't agree with what he was talking about. It wasn't because that they found out that he was gay. It was because they just didn't agree with him. And so they spread that rumor about him.
So the rumors were never valid. There was nothing behind anything until this video was out. And at the point that this video was out, then everybody was like jumping on the bandwagon. Yeah, Kevin Samuels is gay. Kevin Samuels is gay. Now we got confirmation he's gay. It's a whole man in his bed. Oh, he done slipped up now. Oh, he done accidentally turned that camera around. Oh, we know who you're fucking now, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. It started off.
I didn't jump on that bandwagon because for me, anybody could be in your bed, Kevin. And then here it is. You go and you take Tanya TKO's advice and you lie and say it's a technological glitch and that this person was on Zoom and I use Zoom. Hello. Outside of my EHR conducting virtual therapy appointments with my clients, I use Zoom. I have a professional account with Zoom, a branded account with Zoom. So the participant's name is gonna be on the screen if that's their still image. Because he claimed that was a still image of that person, sir.
Yeah, that wasn't a still image. It was obviously a live video,
sir. I'm here for it.
Yeah, it was a live video. I'm not going to be on here. Don't be honest about it. But yeah, it was. But that's why I'm saying that. Before the video, all it was a lot of people assuming because how the way he was talking to women and he wasn't addressing a lot of men that way, where they was speculated that he wasn't addressing a lot of men that way and stuff. And sometimes when women do that too, force with men, they try to do that to try to emasculate the man, saying that he's gay because they don't agree with whatever it is that he's telling them.
Okay, so the thing is this. Kevin Samuels has built his platform up talking to women and men about what it is that women needed to do to take accountability and position themselves in a relationship or in the vetting portion of the relationship to be selected by the man that is a high value man. So the thing is, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is that there are reasons that women don't go to women for advice. When people were asking like, okay, so why are they not going to women? Why are they not asking women? Right? They're not asking women because they don't want to ask the person that's direct competition for them. Like you might, sour things up. What's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he is. Essentially, he doesn't want to face the reality that he might have to make a statement out here and just say, hey, yeah, I have a life partner. Like one of his followers from the man universe.
Oh, manosphere.
Manosphere. Woo! One of his followers were on here the other night and said, you haven't looked at a full video of Kevin Samuels. You haven't looked at a full video. His outcome is for him to get Black families back together. He's trying to get Black families back. That's what he's trying to do. He oftentimes tell people to go back and get in a relationship with the person that got them pregnant. All the vast majority of women that are Black and single out here don't have kids. The realities are this: these younger people that he's talking to have a mindset that they don't want to have children because their childhood and their experience growing up and becoming has been so traumatic. It's one that led to the detriment of their sense of self, their core sense of self, the founding principles of their development through those various stages of life. All of this has a lot to do with why these people don't want to have kids at all. And to be honest with you, when we look at the significant number of Black women who have children and they're single parents, right? And we look at the significant number of Black men who have children and they're single parents. It's not their own fault. They didn't get pregnant by themselves. There are certain things within our culture that we don't hold ourselves accountable for. And when we don't hold ourselves accountable for sexual promiscuity, irresponsible acts when it comes to the way that we gauge and self-regulate and manage our own bodies and our behaviors, right? When it comes to sexual practices and expressing our emotions and our sense of self. When we don't take accountability of that stuff, it leads to people like Kevin Samuels having a platform. And whether or not Kevin Samuels is gay, I don't know. I don't know, but I know this for certain. No straight man would have answered that question like he did. Not when you have the whole man universe manosphere out here to protect you at all costs. You would not have asked for the LGBTQIA plus community to come for you to protect you. I understand that you guys are saying that, you know, Kevin Samuels is a person who, you know, has been out here speaking the word of man, right? And speaking for men. And what he's doing is great. He's trying to drive families together or something. I don't know. But he completely deflected when he was asked that question about was he gay. He said, no, why is that? Why is it that we always have to say a person is gay when they don't agree with us? Kevin, I'm not here to call you gay because I disagree with you, Kevin. I'm calling you gay because apparently we saw some video content that was sus, and then now you answered the question, the direct question, with a deflected tactic.
Yeah, the prior before that, he did the other interviews, and he stated on his interviews that he was a gay. As a matter of fact, when he went on to Tasha K platform, Tasha K had addressed that to him about the video and addressed if he was gay, and he addressed the video. Of course, he said it was on a glitch. And then also he stated that he clearly wasn't gay, but he do date around and he preferred to date younger women. That's what he said.
So how do I know? He asked the LGBTQIA plus to come protect him. He must be one of those men that like the man boy movement. He likes young and impressionable people. I mean, yep. I've only seen him out a couple of times, handful of times I've seen him out in public. It's either been by himself or it's been with a woman that was definitely out of his league. And I think the realities are this. He realizes that he's a guy that's over 50. And yeah, you might want to date these women who are younger just so you can kind of have some viable comparisons for the theoretical framework that I guess is the housing for your belief that women only want a man with money. However, I don't feel like the reality is he's dating these women with the intentions of building something greater with them, because I'm not even sure that Kevin Samuels is ready to be in a serious relationship with someone, whether it's a man or a woman. And I think that he's really out here confused about his sexuality and his personal being.
Yeah, this Jermaine comment is true. The manosphere and feminism it is the same as that thing. Except for one is pro man, the other one is pro woman.
I have a lot of sentiments around feminism, so I won't start.
We ain't talking about feminism right now. We do that another time.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I don't feel like the manosphere is a proper representation of male energy, though. I gotta say that. I feel like the manosphere, if it's going to represent male energy, is doing a very bad job, a poor job. So I'm gonna welcome our guest Archer.
How's it going, ladies?
It's going. It's
Gentlemen.
going.
It's going. You guys are having a
Hey, what's
very
up, bro?
lively conversation up here. I just want to join in right quick.
All right, let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think about? Have you seen that footage? Have you seen the deflection technique your guy out here doing? Like what we doing?
Oh, Kevin Samuels' deflection technique.
Kevin Samuels. Yeah, he had an interview with Vlad TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
I
mean, I saw him accused to say he's not gay.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that at all. He never said that at all.
What did he say?
At all. No.
Okay, what did he say?
It's not what he said. He said, and I quote him at the very beginning of it, why is it that every time, why is it that a thing in the Black community that they have to go and ask me about me being gay? Is my being gay a bad thing? Where's the LGBTQIA plus community? Like they're supposed to, aren't they a protected group? Is that not a protection thing? That's what he said. That's what he said.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah,
he never denied it outright.
I mean, I guess. I mean, he is kind of pointing out that there's a lot of homophobia. It was like a homophobia, a lot of gay hate in the Black community. There's a lot of that. And we are in a time where we're about acceptance, body acceptance, sexual acceptance, and it's kind of strange to see a lot of people hating or attacking him on his sexuality. Let's be honest. In 2020, there's no need for anybody to hide their sexuality. So I take him at face value. If he says he's not gay, I take it at face value.
Wait. You said there's no reason for a person to hide their sexuality. Let's talk about a reason. What's that young lady? Producer, can we go and find that young lady anti-Afro comment that she made about the alternative when she said that if he's in the closet or something like that? So I'm going to say this. And for that person that mentioned Cynthia G, I've never listened to anything that she's ever put out, so I can't comment on Cynthia G. But so I'm going to say this. He has to protect the interest of his perception. If he's setting these women up for failure, and he knows that, okay? Kevin Samuels not stupid. He knows he's setting these women up for failure, talking about a high-value man is a man that makes X amount of money and blah, blah, blah. He's been making X amount of money for 3 years, blah. He knows that he is setting these women up for failure because if you go into a relationship, men, and you think that the valuation of a person lies within their finances or something as simple as their aesthetics, you are as blind as Ray Charles with that hairline.
Is that really him? Is that really him doing that? Because from what I've noticed, I do watch the show. From what I've noticed, this is what the women, even before his show, women have always said they wanted a man. They made songs about it. No scrubs. They want a man with money. And his show, he says, he's a consultant, how to get you a man who has money. So he's not telling women to chase those men. They've been chasing those men. And I agree they shouldn't. But that's what women do. They chase men with money. That's what they do.
Let me correct that. It's those particular type of women that does that, not all women.
I was just about to say
we don't got to say all or particular, but the facts are there are a demographic of women that do that, and his show is about, hey, look, if you want a high value, I don't know why he calls it high value. He really should say high earning because that's what the women are looking for.
That's the point.
And then he puts parameters on what is considered high earning at $100,000, yada yada. This is like, he puts parameters on that. But those women are seeking that and wondering how they can get that. I mean, they call in his show knowing what he means by high value, because he's basically set the parameters around what they want. If he was saying, if you want a broke man, nobody would call into his show.
So the thing is, that's not true, because he had a woman on there, and I think this went viral too, the young white lady that called in and she wanted to make it very clear to him that he was misinforming the Black community about the value of men. And so he made a lot of assumptions about her, because she's a white woman, Because she was living in an affluent component or part of the city, right, that she lived in. And he made some assumptions because he was like, obviously, in his rhetoric, you could hear him saying, your parents are paying for your education, your parents are paying for your apartment. He asked those specific questions. You guys know how he sets it up. As soon as she answered the opposite of what he was looking for, he kind of deflected to, oh, well, he's making money now, right? He's making money now. When this woman's mother met her father, he didn't have any money. He didn't have a job at all. They got married based off of the fact that she was marrying him for his potential. And the realities are, we marry people for their potential. We don't marry people for their current position. There is the thing. You could be changed, slighted off of your position at any given point. Your finances could go down the drain tomorrow, even if you invested well. So the realities are, love is something that typically has relationships lasting out and throughout the test of time. But you don't even get to that until you get to the pragmatics of the relationship. And that means that you're with a person that is complementary to your energy. It has nothing to do with their finances, nothing to do with her looks. So acquiring the attention of a person is one thing. Moving into a vetted relationship with someone that's healthy, moving towards marriage, that's a whole different thing. So I hear people saying that calling him gay, make no mistakes. In no way am I calling Kevin Samuels gay. I'm calling a spade a spade. That was a whole grown man in his bed. And that was not a technological glitch. That was not Zoom. So I'm calling him a liar. That's what I'm calling. And I'm also calling his attempts to deflect a truth in his whole course of things. And to put you guys back on, to put it in perspective, he said, if I'm a heterosexual man, he didn't say outright that he was a heterosexual man, because guess what? If he was a heterosexual man, he would have led with that instead of the deflection.
I mean, okay, can I jump in right quick? I mean, as a man, in my opinion, his gayness has nothing to do with what he's saying about what men desire. I mean, I call me gay if you want to. I know gay people. I mean, this is 2020; they're everywhere. So right. I know that a gay man is still a man at the end of the day. So he can say things that I agree with at the point. So whether Kevin Samuels is gay or not, the fact that so many men are coming to him and saying, you know what, you're right about that point. His sexuality is irrelevant at that point, because men are agreeing with the points he's making about the dating market, not with some of his sexuality. If it's proven tomorrow that he's gay, none of the points that he made that men have agreed with would change, because everybody sees it in the dating market. So his sexuality, I don't understand why his sexuality is so important. I
said that in the beginning of the video. I don't think that takes away from the validity of some of the things that he points out. However, I think that his whole platform for what men are looking for, when men are actually of high value and women that are looking for of high value, I think that is misconstrued, because I deal in facts, and I deal in what I see before me, but also what I see in successful relationships as a person that speaks not only in America, but worldwide on relationships and the health and wealth of relationships and stability in marriages. Okay. I'm a marriage and family therapist. That's what I do. But also the important part for me is people are not out here looking for the vetting of a partner for a long-term committed relationship for the purposes of looking at them, just watching them walk around. You could have a woman that is beautiful, that's sexy, that's doing all of those things, but then she can't cook at all, like a Cardi B. But she don't have Cardi B money.
Nobody's shaming women for pursuing men with money. I mean, we the term gold digger has a negative annotation on it, but I believe personally, and this is just my opinion, that all women have a sense of gold digger about them, and I don't look at them negatively about that, because women wanting men to produce is what keeps men on their toes. It's what built society, in my opinion. Men always competing to be successful against each other in order to get women has turned out to, brought about a lot of great inventions that we all enjoy today. I'm not going to sit here and act like if I played the lottery tonight and I won it tomorrow, my options in women would not increase. I know it would. I know if I'm right now, I'm sitting in a Kia Soul. If I know if I was sitting in a Bentley, I would like it more appeal to me. If you know, they call what they call nigga trinkets. They get you more appeal. If I had a rollie on my wrist, I get more attention. I understand that as a man, so you can't deny that fact that women do perceive men who put off a certain status or a certain amount of wealth differently. That doesn't make them bad people. That just makes them human. Like men want beauty, women want stability.
So
I'm pretty sure you desire stability.
On the surface, I agree. On the surface, they're looking at the outset. So they're looking at what appears, right? However, it's when you talk about people in general, right? There is a different type of person out here dating in this world. Okay. You got people that are intentionally dating with their intent, their primary purpose of being married, being stable, building a life and wealth with a person. And then you have some people who are out here dating just to be dating. They're serial dating. So it looks good if they are with the guy with the Bentley, because at the end of the day, you're not long-term goals, you're right now goals. And she's going to go and she's already made it up in her mind that she needs sex. That's what society you live in. That's the reality. Yeah. So yeah, that type of woman needs you to have money in the here and now. Why? Because she's looking for the here and now existence. If you're looking for a woman that is high value, that woman is not looking to you in your financial situation in your current state as what stability looks like long term. Because at the end of the day, we all know, and women are not stupid out here. Mm-hmm. Being in relationships is a personal investment. It's an investment of your time. It's an investment of your energy. It's an investment of your body. It's an investment of your energy and your spiritual components together, as well as the individual component. So the collective and individualistic investment is huge. So nobody's going to be out here trying to build with a person that they know cannot do the things that they truly expect out of them. And when I say that so many different women have different goals or end outcomes for their dating experience, they do. Women are not out here dating just for the same reason. If that were, they'd be after the same exact guy. And the reality is that's what Kevin Samuels is pushing, that every woman has the same purpose in dating a man, and all of them want a baller. Guess what? The reality is many women don't know what that comes with. And that's an experience for many women. It's an experience. They're just looking to find out what life yields and what that looks like when they're just looking to date, serial date, but not when they're looking to settle down. By the time that woman is looking to settle down, some of them have made some missteps in their process, right? Kevin Samuel says that women should be dated. What type of man she is worthy of should be weighed against the type of men that she's dated in the past. That's ridiculous. Yeah. That means that people show no growth over the course of their experience in life. Now,
I don't think that's what he said, but continue.
That's what he said.
I mean, technically what he said was
extended Vlad interview.
No, what he said was in the history. Your history shows what you qualify for. So if you have a history of dating, of only not being able to reach this level, like if I have a history of only dating women that look like, I don't know, Precious, and I've talked to women who probably look like Beyonce or look like any of these models, and I never got them, but I can only get the ones that look like Precious, then that's what I qualify for, and my history shows that. Like if I go to a bank and I apply for a loan, and I want a $20,000 loan, but they're only willing to give me 10, and every time I go there, they only give me 10. That's what I qualify for with my job and my credit.
Let's talk about that. I love that you made that inference. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Even your credit only extends up to 7 years, and that's it. So a woman's dating history where she's misstepped and made mistakes, and now she has a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old son, even a 7-year-old son, that's still 8 years ago in her relationship experiences and dating. Now when she goes to that bank to get that loan, she more than qualifies because there's nothing else on there.
Yeah, but a child is different. See, there's different parameters, because I wouldn't date a woman with a child.
That's the thing, though. So just because you wouldn't date a woman with a child doesn't mean the vast majority of men out here looking for a woman of high value wouldn't. It doesn't. So that's what I'm saying. When he says that women are looking for this guy that makes this particular dollar amount, it doesn't mean that every woman is looking for that. When I initially came in contact with my first husband, my first marriage, we were kids, literally, and got a whole 20+ year marriage out of that. So essentially, and when we left one another, we were in the same viable state that we were when we came together. Could still go back and get married again today. The fact that the way that he sees life, the way that he sees things is that he experiences his life as the experience that every single other person should be experiencing life in the lens through. With me personally, I wouldn't tell a person to go marry a person, give 25 plus of your years, 30 years of your life to that person and go marry another person because it means that you're in a good place because he can give a good word to the next husband. Of course not.
I have a question for you. Would you ever date a man who had like a bisexual experience, like with another man maybe 10 years ago?
I don't know. I've never had that be something that's an non-negotiable for me. So I don't know. I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't care. Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. I wouldn't care because that's not on my list of my list of non-negotiables are so solid and they're so pragmatic. That's something that would be obsolete. It wouldn't matter to me.
All right, fair enough. But I don't.
Foundation are not those things.
I don't think it's fair. I do think women need to understand that when you do have a kid, it does change the way men look at you. It changes the way they approach the situation. If you can't, women have to accept that.
I think that women definitely need to change the way that they approach the possibility of being in relationships with men. But I don't think that it should be based off of Kevin Samuel's algorithm. I think that he's setting people up for failure. And I've seen tons of couples, when I say tons of couples in the hundreds, fail from building their marriages off of these exact same principles. And then they end up in therapy with a sob story about how that person wasted their life or how that person misrepresented themselves. And as a result, they ended up with being the person that lost money in the end. It's so many horror stories that I hear in the human experience in marriages today. But the reality is they're in these marriages that take so much from them and don't add value to them because they did not start off with healthy boundaries and expectations. That's what will set you up with success in relationships, because you cannot say that you have a clear understanding of what it is that you want out of a person if you don't even know what you want out of yourself. There is a lot of self work that has to be done before you can position yourself to receive a partner in a relationship, period.
Well, I understand that, but what he's saying is that many men, their ideal situation is not a woman with kids. Their ideal situation is not an overweight woman, so I don't get why these are even negotiable things. I mean, we understand that men have desires and needs too. So men can have the things that they want in a relationship and things they don't want and things they're willing to settle for if they can't get exactly what they want. And I think no man wakes up and says, you know what, I want a woman who has 3 or 4 kids already. Most men want to start their own families. So I don't get how that's even a lot of people who disagree with Kevin Samuels. And like I said, I watched the show a couple times. I'm not a big fan, but when I do listen to him as a man, I understand where he's coming from. And I don't think the failures of the marriages or the failures of relationships in the Black community has anything to do with anything he's saying, because Black marriages and Black relationships have been failing long before he was even on the scene. That we've been having these problems in Black America for a long time when it comes to interpersonal dynamics between both genders. And it has nothing to do with Kevin Samuels. It actually has a lot to do with people just not understanding what each other wants. And Kevin is basically putting a highlight of what men want. And I agree with a lot of his points. I mean, I haven't heard nothing I disagree with that he said. I haven't heard anything from women with kids, overweight women, body counts, all that. I agree with all that. So I don't understand where all this hate's coming from.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with any of that, because even though you say that before he came about, the marriages were failing, these are the reasons that marriages were failing. And this is what history has taught us. That is where his talking points come from. His talking points are about the marriages in the Black community failing because there is a what do they call it? A response system of the kids in the blended family dynamic where you ain't my daddy, the whole Baby Kids movie from the 90s. You understand what I'm saying? So these are things that have made it very difficult for men to reposition themselves in situations where the system is already established. But it's about coming into a place of understanding about, like you said, what people really want. And they can't identify that if they don't do their self-work. And they can't identify that by going off of a miscalculation that this is what the vast majority of people in this age group, that's the problem, in this age group wants. In your 30s, typically people have gone through being married in their early 20s, if that's what their outcomes are based off of, if that's what in their mind are life goals. And with marriage comes having kids. Doesn't mean that a person was hypersexual at all. I was a virgin up until I got married. But that doesn't mean that I don't have children now having been divorced, right? So in my mind, essentially, I can't get away from the idea that it's a wrong or right thing when you're trying to figure out whether or not you're going to date a person that has children or not. You know, I had the same sentiments, held my ground, and I still was able to solidify the ideal relationship with the ideal man. and so it is what it is. So I feel like if you have a preference, hold your preference, but understand the why for your preference. My preference, like other people outside of America coming into this country, we see so much discord within American culture, not just Blacks. But in American culture, your child support system is an issue. The whole fathers not necessarily having rights and access to their kids is an issue. It's a lot of things that are the highlight of the drama in America, and people want to avoid that craziness. So I believe strongly that you create your chaos. If you want successful relationships, then you have to move in ways that say and draw the energy of people that are a potential success or a contribution to your being, your spirit. So when I say that Kevin Samuels speaks on points that are not relevant in this age group, they're not relevant in this age group if you're saying that a person's outcomes are to be married long term. People's spouses die. That's the reality. People's spouses move on. That's the reality. Those same said people, because you know how many people down on the interstates every single day? That's somebody's father, somebody's mother. So the reality is this: some people are going to end up single, and they're going to end up single with kids as a result. And into their next marriage, they're going to have to eventually tether their energy to someone else, and they may be in their early 30s. That's just reality.
You're not entitled to have somebody just because you end up single after a child. That's not something that's guaranteed to you. Nothing in this world is guaranteed. Like, just because, I mean, personally, I don't care how she got single. I don't care if she was widowed. I don't care if she was abused. I don't care if she broke up with a man. At the end of the day, when I go into the situation, I see a child there. And I know that changes the dynamic between me and her. She doesn't have the free time I might need her to have. She doesn't, like, children is a lot of responsibilities. And then you cannot act like that type of responsibility as a mother doesn't change what it's like, what it is for you to be out here on the dating scene. You can't say you have the same freedoms that a woman without a child has. And men have the right to weigh that into consideration, regardless of how you got there. They have that right to weigh that into consideration.
I agree with that part. I do agree with that part. However, when you say that you're not entitled to something, marriage is a thing that every person has the right to want out of their life. Just like success is a thing that everybody has a right to want out of their life. Are they entitled to it? Of course not. Some people will end up strung out on crack and on the end of the street living under a bridge in Atlanta somewhere or in LA somewhere. That will be their outcome. So so are they entitled to have life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness? Of course. Will they get it? Did they get it? Nah, they didn't. They died alone underneath the bridge, and nobody even knew that they died, and nobody came to pick up their ashes. That's the reality of life. But every woman, regardless of her positioning herself to have kids, to be married, to be tethered, every woman has a right to have that as her end game. And if she also has a right to position herself that way. I know that for some, odd reason, you guys have this idea that the value of a woman decreases over time. Like, I've heard some very interesting things. A woman in her 30s doesn't have the same value in her vagina as a woman in her 20s.
She's definitely not as beautiful. I think when they say that, when they talk about, like Kevin Samuels talks about just monetary value, like as far as money and assets when it comes to men. When the guys say women decrease in value when they age. They talk about more aesthetics, beauty.
Well, no, I'm specifically referring to Kevin Samuel's conversation with a 34-year-old woman, 34-year-old woman from the other day. And he asked her the question. He said, so what about I forgot what he called it, right? He was referring to her vagina. He said, do you think it has the same value as it did when you were in your 20s? And she said, yeah, more value. He said, you're crazy. That's crazy. You're delusional. So how does he know that woman that he's talking to has even been engaged in sex? That's one question.
I mean, even if she hasn't been engaged in sex, I don't understand how it would have more value when she's older.
That was his reasoning. So that's why I mentioned.
I mean, I'm 34, about to be 35, and personally, I don't date women over 25. I mean, the oldest woman I've ever dated was 25 years old. So I typically don't date women in their 30s. I actually knew a girl in Philly, and she was 30, and it was kind of once I found out she was 30, it kind of turned into a hit it and quit it type situation. I mean, typically typically you don't meet many women that you're attracted to that's over 30 anyway. So
no, Kevin Samuels, Mr. Brooks, did not mean that as far as having kids. In this conversation, I watched that segment. That's the one I said I almost watched the whole show.
Hey, I just been standing by listening to the whole dialogue between you two, and I'm actually enjoying it a whole lot because both of y'all are mentioned some great points. Both of y'all are doing direct quotes according to his show or what he's saying. Now, the question I want to ask to both of y'all is this: how is it possible that Mr. Archer, myself, and also you, Dr. Jefferson, that we all have a different interpretation based on what Kevin Samuels is talking about? Archer, he made some real good points about exactly what Kevin Samuels has said. I made points as well, and you make some interesting points as well. So how is it possible that all of us is coming up with this different interpretation based on what this man is talking about? And I also, the reason why I'm asking that question is because I believe that's what's causing a lot of confusion between the community with men and women who are viewing his content. They interpret it one way, another person may perceive it another way. So at the end of the day, we are trying to pursue some type of truth behind this.
Or meaning.
Or meaning behind it.
Because there are no universal truths when we're talking about the success or failures of people vetting relationships with people and looking for or seeking out high value. And that's my point. My point of contention with Kevin Samuels, and the reason I don't like him in his creating this content, is simply because he's pushing a rhetoric that there is a particular theme, right, that says that a man is of high value and a man should exercise his options. And I think somebody made the comment about men and women are naturally into hypergamy and polygamy. That's a whole nother conversation. I think you guys need to do your history, a little bit of work of history checking, fact checking.
Well, women aren't naturally hypergamous. I don't know about polygamy. I don't know where that came from.
Not necessarily.
That's a cultural thing.
But what I will say is this: the woman's body is designed very differently than the male's body for a reason. There is a point of difficulty that men face in their life as they reach an older age. And these particular men, which is the vast majority of men, start to need assistance with an erection. Erections are what guides sexual intercourse with a man and a woman. And so essentially, even if he knows how to use his mouth and you know, the cunnilingus is great, it's amazing, right? He still cannot perform like a young man can perform. And so that said woman can easily move into other relationships that allow her to satisfy her physical needs, because apparently Sir right here can't do it. Another component is this: a woman typically goes without achieving orgasms with men simply because men are incapable physically of achieving that climax for women 9 times out of 10. And most women fake it in bed because they know that they'll never get there. And when you're done in those 2 pumps or 3, they're up here trying to figure out how to handle it themselves. And as a result, live in high stress every single day, end up breaking out end up going through the ups and downs, highs and lows of being in a relationship with you and trying not to disrespect you or emasculate you, but also find ways, meaningful ways for her to connect with you and let you know, hey, you're not reaching my sexual goals out here in these streets. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole other thing. But what I will say is this. Kevin Samuels makes some very good points sometimes. And I don't go against his speaking points when he's making valid points. Whether he's gay or not has a lot to do with the value of the advice that he's giving these women, because if he's gay and if he's in the market for the same said men, that these women are going to him to get advice as to how they, build relationships with them. Now he's a person that's in direct competition with them if he's single. So that's all I'm saying, which is why women don't go to women for advice, which is why women have a certain way they feel about a woman telling them what to do. I have women that I've known for years, and they're very slutty in the way that they move. We move in different ways, but I tell them all the time, because I'm an abruptly very honest person. I call a spade a spade. And when I tell women, like, you have to have value for yourself first, I preach this, and that's the forefront of everything that I say. Like, if you don't value yourself, how is it that you expect this guy to value you in this way? If you've not made it a condition that he marry you, how is it that you expect this guy to position himself to marry you and he's already got what he came for?
So, I mean, so you're essentially saying that women shouldn't take advice from single women or single gay men.
No, I'm not saying that. That's Kevin Samuels again. I agreed with him to some level, because I do see the reason that women don't take that advice. So when he made the reference on that show and he said, single women don't take advice from your married women don't take advice from your single female friends that are out here talking about, girl, no, he don't control you. Come on, let's go out. What you mean you gonna stay in the house? Stay in the house for what? He don't do da. I agree with him, because those women are definitely sabotaging the relationship. I agree with those sentiments. However, in general, when you're talking about relationship advice, stability advice, and preparation advice, right? When you're preparing to enter into a relationship, there are certain things that you need to do. And it's not achieve a certain amount of financial stability. It's doing the self-work that will allow you to position yourself in a positive space to be able to contribute to the essence of another person and make sure that they are able to positively contribute to your essence. That's what it takes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. In your opinion, what do you think men who make a lot of money, now we're not gonna put a number on it, but we're just gonna call them high earning men, what do you think they desire out of a woman? Do you think it's any different than what the average Joe desires from a woman? Do you think the dating market's a little different for richer men than it is for average men?
The vast majority of my clients that I see in therapy are very well-off men.
Okay.
So those men who are coming to me and they're single and looking for women, and now I can go back over 100 cases. The symmetry and what they were looking for in a woman had nothing to do with how much money it is or how she looks per se. It was how she could add value to him in other ways. They cared about heavily whether or not she could cook. That was one that came up. That was a centralized theme. And every time I was like, I chuckled because I'm like, what? Do you know how to cook? And they would joke and they were like, no, I don't. I came from the foundations of my father. My father said that I was supposed to be the leader, protector, provider. So the woman has to be in there cooking. Now, the vast majority of these men, I have to admit, some are in the Black community, but the vast majority of them are not in the Black community. And there are a lot of them that are in the African community. And I have a lot of them that are also European that share the same sentiments. They need a woman who can respect them, that values their leadership, that trusts them enough to submit and lead them. And a woman who is sound in her sense of self so that she doesn't feel like at any point she should be insecure with his position of leadership in providing for her financially. So these men have high value simply because they have done self-seated that self-work, that self-seated exploration that says, this is the reason I want a woman, or I need a woman that does this. This is the reason I want a woman or need a woman that does this. And the same goes for those women. Now, I will admit, most of the time in therapy, most of the issues come about with single women, and sometimes they have some real unrealistic expectations out of relationships, but that's not to say there is no validity in their expectations. But I say their expectations, even though they've labeled them as boundaries. And that's when it becomes a problem, because when you have a boundary is a non-negotiable. And when you have a boundary that is inflexible, but a person has no way of gauging or controlling that factor, for example, his penis size, it's not pragmatic. So you have to go back to the drawing board, label it as an expectation. And if he doesn't have it, then let's see what else what can you do? Let's figure out where you're going to negotiate. Where's the flex? That's a flexible component. So you could say you want a man that has muscles all over his body everywhere, but guess what? This dude only has nice arms and abs. What you gonna do? That can't be a boundary. That can't be, I have to have a man with this thing.
So you're saying your women clients have been more demanding than your man clients when it comes to seeking a partner for the most part?
Not necessarily more demanding, but unrealistic in their demands, versus the male component being more realistic and exploring within himself, why do I need these things? Because what you need, the things you say you need, are non-negotiables. You cannot live without those things. It's about balancing out what life yields. You understand?
Non-negotiables meaning the women are less flexible on their stuff than the men were. The men were more flexible on weighing, giving and taking.
But
she might have two out of three things I want, but at least she has two of three things. For the women, they want all three.
I mean, to be honest, that's kind of the point that Kevin Samuels be making on a lot of his segments. Is that particular point?
I agree with that, but what I'm saying is I want to make sure that I make it clear what I mean. Boundaries are inflexible in general. And it's good to have inflexible components, especially when you're building relationships with people, because if you're permeable completely, then you have no secure sense of self. All of you cannot be flexible. You understand? Certain parts of you can be flexible. For example, you mentioned earlier that you don't want to date a woman who is over the age of 25, right? It's a couple of reasons why there is validity in your position in dating a younger woman. But that's neither here nor there. That could or could not be your reason. But your preference in dating a woman based on her age and based on whether or not she has kids, those are healthy boundaries type of preferences, because the reality is this: if you go into a relationship with a woman with children and you have no intentions of being a stepfather, a present father, a father in any way, right? You are now an unhealthy component for that system. And you will do harm, whether it's intentional or unintentional. You cannot be trusted to go into a relationship and provide a healthy foundation for a child if that is your mindset. And that's a self-work thing. People have to come into that reality. People do. It's not just a you thing. And it's a good thing that you've come to that conclusion. I mean, I have some of my adult sons. They have interesting preferences, but they definitely are not going to date a woman with kids. I think somebody asked me that question: how would I feel if they came home with a woman with 4 kids? I wouldn't care. That's their life. Do what you need to do for you. I'm not a helicopter parent, and I've raised my kids with pragmatics. Their fathers have, that contributed to their mindset. The other men in their life, grandfathers and uncles, and community, and my kids have been raised all over the globe. So they've been exposed to a lot of cultures. And for them...
Are you ADOS? Are you ADOS Black American? Are you...
I'm Spanish American.
Spanish American, okay.
But so for my kids, they've been exposed to a lot. So there is a lot that shapes their understandings and their interactions in their relationship. So for me, I'm just
Hey,
whatever.
Dr. J, I mean to interrupt you. I want to address Miss B coming real quick. She was asking why Kevin Samuels doesn't allow men on the show. I want to address that as a content creator. The reason why he does that because he caters to his demographics on his platform. All of us, every content creator, well, me, Dr. J, Kevin Samuels, and the rest of them, we do have analytics where we look at it and see who's participating on our shows or on our panels. So majority of the time, Kevin Samuels' numbers is catered more towards women, so it's more women that be on this platform than men. So strategically, it'll be better for him to cater towards women. It's the same thing on my platform as well. I have almost nearly 80% women that be on my platform, and only about 30 to 40% men that be on my platform as well. So that's been a content creator. That is what we do. We just cater to the demographics that's catering to our platform, and that's what he does.
On top of that, it makes a better show. I mean, he typically he tells people who disagree to call. It's mostly going to be women, and if he has a lot of men calling up just to say how much they agree with what he's saying, it kind of becomes kind of an echo chamber, and this becomes redundant. I wouldn't want to listen if it was just men saying, you know what, you're right about that, and you're right about that. No, it's more entertaining to hear the disagreements. He understands that it's marketing.
Yeah,
like he's
absolutely.
been in marketing for a while.
Well,
so he understands.
I just wanted to note the only reason I came on here because the topic was about Kevin Samuels, and I happened to write a blog article about Samuels. And the reason I did, but normally I write a blog as a writer, well, as a former journalist and as a writer. My blog actually is about media and generally about current news. And the only reason that I kind of wrote about him was because he was the sort of hot topic, hot thing on YouTube. And just my assessment about Samuels, from the very beginning when his video with the young lady who was, I don't know, average, I guess he called her, went viral. What I saw clearly was, when first looking at him, was this is a corporate guy, probably in sales, and someone who has taken this corporate sales, and from what I read, if his LinkedIn is accurate, and you never know, somewhat advertising background. And that's the framework that he uses. And all he's done is apply it to relationships. Mm-hmm. So essentially, when you look at somebody like Samuels, basically it's all about salesmanship with this guy.
Well, Samuel's show is not about how to get married. It's about how to market yourself.
I mean, it's all marketing. It's all marketing. It's all advertising.
Yeah,
it's just one big commercial. It's all sales and marketing. And I'm not an expert on marketing. I've read about advertising, and I know a little about marketing, but I about sales. But I look at all of these elements, and I go, this guy has taken simply his corporate background, and he's managed to cut a niche, because you didn't see people like Samuels giving relationship advice, romantic advice before, from that framework. So in my article, I said he's almost like a sort of African-American version of Don Draper.
You know what? I said the same exact thing.
Go ahead, doctor. Sorry.
I said the exact same thing when I first started to hear some of the things that he was talking about, and some of his approaches to addressing some of the inadequacies in the, presentation or the thought, the framework that guides the thought processes of young women in the Black community, and those being unrealistic. Now, that's another reason why I said that there are a lot of things in women that typically, they don't make sense. Because I've seen it. I've seen it in therapy. I mean, by the hundreds, thousands of clients that come in, single women trying to grab relationships, and successful single women. Okay. Also on the same end of the spectrum, successful single men. But I feel like if he were realistic, and for us, we can't share our specific clinical, you know what I mean, information out there on relationship shows and things like that. But I do tell people you have to be realistic, because collectively women, especially in the Black community, have a sense of my value is that of the equal of a man, and that will set you up for failure in your relationships, because men, not just Black men, men in general must be respected in order for them to lead from a position that allows them to be secure in their purpose in the relationship. That's a necessity for men. And so women cannot respect a man that she sees as her equal.
Well,
you know, that's just what it is. Because
I disagree with you there. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, you could disagree, but these are facts. As soon as he messes up, as soon as he missteps, as soon as he creates, discord in their relationship by stepping out and betraying her and having sex with somebody else, or other betrayals where he's sharing information about his relationship struggles with another woman, just leaning independent and talking to another woman, okay? As soon as he starts to do those things, women will start to, with those microaggressions, disrespect him. And then it will move to more profound means of disrespecting him once she has made her mind up that she's now ready to actually physically leave the relationships. Because the difference in the way that the woman and a man position themselves in a relationship is the thing that most people miss. Women leave over a course of time. And it's a long period of time, because she has to weigh out the pros and the cons and things like that. Like, okay, is this really something that, like, is it really okay? So is he going to get it together without communicating with him after the event? Act like the event never happened. This is what they do. Right. And then
I tend to look at it. Go ahead. Sorry.
One day he wakes up and she got a whole different energy. She's a whole different woman. Looks like a whole bipolar episode, a manic version. She's just gone.
Well, you just said something that's really interesting. You said men and women communicate different. And I don't think any man has ever denied that fact. We understand that we are different in our way of thinking, our way of viewing the world, our way of processing the information we get from the world. Men and women calculate that completely different. Now, as for Kevin Samuels' show, he does give, in my opinion, a fair enough assessment of the way men view things. And I don't think the problem is that he's inaccurate. I think the problem is that a lot of women have a problem with accepting that men view things differently than they do. And when they finally hear that men view things differently than they do, they kind of push back and say, no, you have to view things the way I view it. Otherwise, there's something wrong with you. And I've had women do that to me in my personal life. Like I've
but you can find that in any show. The difference between Kevin Samuels and other shows is that Kevin Samuels, what's evident to me looking at a show is very clearly that Kevin Samuels doesn't seem to like women very much.
Exactly.
It's very clear to me. It's
I'm being
very
honest.
clear to me.
Yeah, and really? Wait a minute. The reality is this: what you just said that women do to you is exactly what Kevin Samuels does to women on his show. When they don't agree, he gets very disrespectful. Who called for this big bitch? Get this big bitch out of here. I've heard him say these things.
Right. Okay, but when they don't agree about his view on the world, you see,
ideals.
The way men view the world. See, women have had a history of not agreeing with the way men think, trying to force what they think onto us. And if I told a woman this is A, B, and C is how I feel, and she says, no, it's not, then I have a right to get a little snippy. How you going to tell me how I feel about something? And
so a lot of women. That's the point of contention that I've made. So I said that Kevin Samuels trauma bonds with the people who follow him, these men. He knows that this is your experience. As a result, that's what he uses to grab you in, because your personal experience is now taking over where pragmatics should be presenting. So cognitively, you should be able to decipher that, you know what? This guy doesn't speak for all men, but I agree with this particular thing. So very similar to how you guys will mention, well, Kevin Samuel says X, Y, Z. And I'm like, well, yeah, there is validity in that. Why? Because for me, it's about pragmatics and accountability. So if there is something that you say that is in alignment with what reality is, based off of a number of cases where we see this being the issue that people come in and identify as causing them distress in finding relationships, right? They identify. Understand what I'm saying? They, not me. then it makes sense for me to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But Kevin Samuels doesn't do this. This is not what he does. There are no theoretical frameworks for him giving out relationship advice. He's using numbers and making it make sense because he's been taught to do that, and he said as much on his ad interview.
Well, let me have a little clarification. I mean, a full disclosure for the panel. I've had conversations with Kevin Samuels way before he blew up. I was talking to him in 2018. He hangs around the same YouTube groups I hang around. I'm part of the Manosphere. He's part of the Manosphere. He's been on many panels that I've been on with me. So just to make that full disclosure with everybody, I've actually talked to the guy, and I in no way, shape, or form think he's gay or think he's trauma bonding with anybody. I think a lot of Black men have these experiences with the community, and they express them. And I think people have a problem with Black men expressing how they feel about certain situations in the community.
That's an interesting assumption to make. So there is, I don't know how well you're fairly young, so you probably weren't around for this group. So
wait, hold up. I'm bald. I'm old.
You said earlier that you were in your early 30s.
I'm 34. I feel old.
That's your early.
I'm in my 50s, so I am old.
Right. Right. And I'm much older. So
let me have my pain. I'm old, bro.
At the beginning of this Facebook group, there was a group created on Facebook for and it was kind of at the beginning of Facebook's really getting hot, 2007 to 2008. Yeah. So there was this group created where a lot of people from not only America, but other countries, we were curious about the Black male experience. We were curious about what they felt about their conditioning, because we started to see trends in the Black family change all the way back in the 70s and 80s. And so we were curious about, how do these current group of Black people feel about how they are positioned in relationships? Let's target the men first. So we went to the men first because in our culture, what the man says matter, because the men lead. And so we created this group, and they created a second group and a third group. But to say all of it, the only person that was there on the scene for those groups was Tommy Sotomayor. And I'm a person. That's where he got his start. That's where he got his jump, should I say. Okay. And so lots of these men in that group, it was called Black Men Being Brutally Honest with Everyone. And then after that one, it got shut down for hate a couple of years after that, because the Black men would say a lot of very mean things, or considered to be very mean things about Black women and their experiences. And so, as I said, Tommy Sotomayor became like the guy. He became the guy. Like, he's going to represent
his entire career.
Broken.
Not really. Tommy Sotomayor was basically what Kevin Samuels is now. He became
in this group. I'm going to make it very clear. This is over 30 million men in this group. That's just a male. That's just the male energy in the group. Over 30 million men. That was then.
Full disclosure, I was in that group.
You were not in the group in the beginning. I created that group. So literally there were 9 men before I handed that thing over, because it became so toxic. There were like 9 men in the group, and we had various conversations off and on. Now, when Tommy Sotomayor came in there and he started to kind of spew his rhetoric, at first it was we were gaining some ground. We were learning a little bit about men and, the Black male and their experiences and things that they thought were leading to the decay of Black families and things like that initially. And then it became kind of like a platform to just talk about Black women, and that's it. So it's not productive, because the idea is to find out what shapes your ideas about the entirety of the existence of the Black community declining, not necessarily just the women. Okay. And I agree, Miss Sandy. And so Kevin is now that same dude, but you still have Tommy Sotomayor that is somewhat still relevant in that way. But I think that he's picked out so many arguments with so many different people now. He's repositioned himself and is not just having arguments with women anymore in the Black community.
Can I ask you a question? Do you know anybody that does what Kevin does besides Kevin at this moment?
Just Tommy Sotomayor.
Right, and that's what I was about to. The point I was about to make
He was
earlier.
already
Kevin,
doing that before Kevin became a thing.
let me make a point right quick, because Tommy and Kevin does do the same thing. Kevin's a shock jock. Kevin is 100%. Kevin and Tommy are like two drops in a big lake. They're not Kevin. Like I said, I've been talking to Kevin since 2018. I've known of Kevin for a long time. He's been on the same panels with me, with hundreds of other men on YouTube. You understand? Kevin is just the one that blew up, but he is by no shape and form the leader or the face of that. There's people that Kevin will refer you to, like Obsidian, like BGS, like Minister Jap, people that nobody's heard of because they haven't blown up. And even when Tommy was in having his time for fame, where he was the most popular, known by everybody, that is, he was not the only one. There was Solon Black, there was Black Ram, there was a lot of other content curators that actually put out better content, better information, more academic information, more better articulated information better than Tommy did. But Tommy was just the one that blew up. Tommy blew up because of the way he did his show, which is more shock jock, more just say the most how to say it, how the most vile things you can say, and that caught attention. Kevin's show is more of a dating show, and right now people with COVID, they say they want to watch dating shows, but Kevin and Tommy are not the only ones in the game. They are just at the moment the most popular. Now, if you want to actually talk about the way the vast majority of these men feel, you have to actually go and deal with more than just two of the men in those type of spaces. Now, people in those spaces do have varying opinions. There are debates amongst them all the time. They argue with each other. They beef with each other about particular topics. They're not all in solidarity, and in no way, shape, or form is it an echo chamber amongst the men. They even accept that they have different experiences. They even have debates like the Pookie and Ray Ray versus the thug debate, or the money versus the physical. You know, what do women desire more? They want a man with money, or do they want what they call a jawline nigga that has the looks? And you know, it's a lot of things that gets talked about in these spaces. But as far as the people who come out of these spaces and go mainstream, they're not representative of the whole space and the whole Black male experience in America. They're just the one guy who kind of made it mainstream amongst a lot of other guys who have opinions.
Listen, I'm not saying that's not a fact. What I'm saying, and I presented a whole thing about the Manosphere conference that took place a couple of months ago. I've done
the Manosphere has never had a conference. There's two manospheres. There's the white manosphere and there's the Black manosphere. The white manosphere might have had a conference, but they are not the same manospheres. They would tell you that.
Black men. Well, it was a couple of. You remember when we did that Urban Therapist? Go back a couple of videos. I'll say that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So it's out there. They filmed it. So they did it for sure.
Well, what Kevin Samuels has done is basically take a monetized view of relationships.
Exactly.
It's a commodification of romance. That you look at the term high value, that implies a fiscal status. It's like a stock. It's like commodities, like a stock. It's like bonds. It's like any other kind of commodity. And so you look at men and women are to be traded. Now, I agree that I understand that marriage can be an economic arrangement and a fiscal arrangement to a great extent, institution. But his view is relationships in general are treated as if they're stocks. And so what you want in a man or a woman is a blue chip stock, a high value man, blue chip stock. You want a commodity that will pay off. And so the approach that Samuels has taken is one I think that is contingent upon a corporate and a business framework and a structure. And that is why he partly or largely, I would say, it's also the confrontational nature. What he's doing, it seems to me, is he's doing the kind of thing he wishes he could have done in his own life. This is not unusual with a lot of people.
I agree. I said the same thing in my first review. of Kevin Samuels. And I think that it boils down to this. When you understand human behavior, you understand what makes people do the things they do, you understand human motivation, you can understand people like Kevin Samuels from a different lens, which is why most of the stuff that I do on this channel is around accountability, but also for us to understand people and understand how the mental health component, emotional and behavioral health component plays into what shapes people, their perceptions and their behaviors. So for me, right, Kevin Samuels deflecting when he was asked that question instead of just outright answering it, that was the only point that was, it's like a solidification, because the reality is this: if you're a straight man and people have come for you and said that you were gay, then you can always answer the question and then expound upon what it is you feel is inaccurate or inadequate in the way that people approach you and all of this stuff. You can do that because that's what you're there for. It's your interview. It's your time. Vlad's not going to cut it off. So,
but he did that before. He's done that. He did that on Tasha. He did that on Tasha K's show, which he did an interview with Tasha K about a month before he did an interview with Vlad.
His interview with Tasha K was not before that video incident. That's a whole different thing. We're talking about a whole different thing. So no, we're not going to act like that video switching, the camera switching didn't happen. That happened. It's a real thing. It was not a Zoom screen. It was not. It was not.
His interview with Tasha K happened before the whole Zoom thing on.
It's not a Zoom thing.
The whole situation, but the people are reading a lot into that situation. First of all, the guy wasn't.
Yeah, you're right. Because guess what? When people were saying Kevin Samuels was gay and he hate women, blah, 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 before, I was like, well, you know what? The guy's been married to 2 different women. I've had an interview. So I understand exactly why it is that both of his marriages ended from the female's perspectives. So it's interesting to me that people will say and make an assumption without any ironclad evidence.
But
and
that's not
evidence. Quote someone that gave that to me. So my thing is, I don't care. I didn't cover Kevin Samuels from a discrediting perception because I don't believe in tearing people down. That's the only reason. That's the
only evidence you can have that Kevin Samuels is gay is if you see him actually.
Kevin Samuels and him being gay ain't my business. Whatever it is that Kevin Samuels is, he needs to come out and say it. He needs to not deflect from the conversation when people ask him a direct question. So if you say to me, and I'm a straight man, are you gay? People have been saying that there was this thing that happened on your show. Specifically, Vlad talked about that. And he said they saw a man in your bed. He went to talking about it was a technological glitch in somebody's screen on Zoom that was their picture. I don't have any control over another person's picture on Zoom. No.
Time out. First of all, how do you know it was his bed? Second of all,
let me because he took pictures on his social media. Maybe you didn't watch Tanya TKO's review, because when she did that, I didn't say anything about it, but she had the receipts. What can I say? She got pictures of him in that same room, that same background, that same space, by that same bed, same colors, all of that good stuff. That is his room. That is not somebody else's room. You took pictures in this space.
Okay. That I honestly, like I said, unless you see him in the bed with somebody, because just a year ago,
I see him in the bed with somebody. But guess what? If you have a guest room, that's what your guest room is for. It's for guests.
Right. It's okay, yeah, you got a guest room. That you put your computer, you might have your guest room. But I've had my brother over my house, sleep over my house. My brother lives with me once he had a situation with his wife.
And guess what? So, like you just said, let's go to that. You just said I had my brother with me, blah blah blah, but you didn't lie and say it was the whole Zoom thing, because it wasn't.
I mean, I don't know why. If he lied, yeah, he's wrong for lying. But I'm saying I don't know what his explanation of it was. But just to say there was a man in his bed, the man wasn't naked.
That's the point. And guess what? I said the same thing. I kept the same energy until he lied and deflected during this interview.
Yeah. It's a suspicious answer, because when it comes to that sort of thing, all you need to do is say yes. I'm straight, but I will say that was a glitch that happened, and that's why people could assume that that's the case.
Exactly.
Then you can make
my cousin, my brother, my whomever was in the bed.
Right. There you go. There you go.
He owes his followers, and especially you guys that feel like a part of the manosphere, you have to protect this guy at all costs. He owes you guys an explanation. It's not me.
Right.
I don't follow this dude. I only want to talk about accountability. So a man who is Black in the Black community that is causing discord in the way that women view themselves and pushing his truth onto these women instead of using pragmatics as the schema driving his perceptions. That is my problem with Kevin Samuels.
Wait. Can I ask you a question?
Black relationship.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think Kevin Samuels is telling these women to date, to desire $100,000 men, or do you think they already desired that man before they came to him?
I'm gonna say again, I don't care what kind of man these women value or want, right? That's not the issue. My issue with Kevin Samuels, again, is the fact that he tries to push his perception of their value onto them, even when they have made it very clear that their valuation of self is something else. And then he calls them irrational because you asked them a question about what they felt their value was. And for whatever reason, you seem to have an idea that your value for them weighs over their own personal sense of self. That's the problem that I have with Kevin Samuels. I'm gonna make that clear one more time for the people in the back that ain't hearing to understand. That's my problem. I could care less about Kevin Samuels thinking that the girl was average at best. I ain't even watched the video. I could care less about Kevin Samuels calling this girl a big bitch. Get out of here. That threatening. I watched that one. I could care less about Kevin Samuels feeling like a young lady is a 8 out of 10. What's her name? Beyonce? I could care less about him feeling like that. I can guarantee you Beyonce and her husband feel like she a 10. So
in his case,
who cares? Who cares what Kevin Samuels thinks? His valuation of a person does not outweigh the valuation they have for themselves. That's the problem. The targeted population that are calling his show are very impressionable. So when you're talking to, it's just like you're talking to a child. That's the problem. So you're talking to them and you're impressing your views on them, and you're 52 years old, grown ass old man. You become a problem when you're trying to get them to think that they are less valuable. And as you can easily say, most men wouldn't value you like that. But it's interesting to see how you value yourself that way.
I mean, isn't it interesting to see that? I mean, you just had up here and you said that Kevin Samuels calling these women whatever he calls them doesn't matter. These women shouldn't. It doesn't matter. But yet, in turn, you went behind that and said these women are impressionable. You went behind that and labeled these women yourself with impressionable.
Their actions labeled them. The fact that they're calling in to this man's show, asking him how it is that they can elicit the type of relationship that they are looking for. They're asking him for advice. The fact that they're asking him and they're arguing with him about how they see themselves. That is what is the solidification. There is no woman with a great sense of self that calls into Kevin Samuels' show and say, hey, by the way, I'm married. And like, I've been married for 20 years to my husband. Like, what do you rate me? What do you rate me? What do you rate me, Kevin? Kevin, you matter. What do you rate me? The fuck? No woman's doing that because she knows who she is. She doesn't need Kevin Samuels to rate her so that she can feel like she's worthy of, going out and eliciting the type of relationship that she wants.
So you're mad at the women for calling in and asking Kevin.
Of course not. Of course not. They can do whatever they want to do. I'm not mad at them.
I'm not mad. Probably was the wrong word, but you're upset that Kevin Samuels is rating the women or giving a critique on the women that you have your own critique about.
So let's say this again. Urban Therapist, can you restate my point of contention?
I'm just saying you seem not to think very highly of these women just because they call in his show.
I can't think highly or lowly of these women. That ain't my business. What is my business is the fact that they are looking outside of themselves for validation. And what we know about human psychology, what we know about the human developmental process, what we know about, because I'm a psychotherapist, by the way, this is what I do, what we know about people who solidify the different stages of development when it comes to personality shaping is that people with a solid sense of self that doesn't have, you know, inflated sense of selves, but just a solid understanding of who they are, how they operate, and how they can achieve the goals that they've set out in life. What influences the outcomes that they've had thus far in life. They do not seek external validation to walk their walk. So there is no emotional responsiveness when they're in conversations with people, because they don't go to people to see what they're rating them. Like, nobody does that. Nobody.
So it's a validation thing.
System. No, men have had their rating system for years. They've had a rating. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's none of.
I know that's true.
Yeah, that's none of a woman's business. And guess what? Women have had their rating systems for men. That's none of a man's business. That ain't your business. Right. The way I rate you ain't your business. For what? For what?
We typically don't get mad about it. We typically don't get mad with the way women rate us. We just
let me tell you something. Apparently, you get mad about it because your own thing with Kevin Samuels degrading women as a result of them having turned them down for unrealistic expectations. So that says something totally different.
No, that's not true, because
the foundation for Samuels, beyond what I mentioned, the framework of the corporate marketing advertising aspect. The basic foundation is sexism and misogyny.
Exactly.
That's also apparent in his, because of not just the way he treats women, but his his mindset, and his own sense of entitlement. He feels entitled, and he feels basically his show allows himself to be the kind of man he probably wasn't in his life. Very successful, very an authority figure, a paterfamilias that he probably wasn't to his wife and his kids. He allowed him to be everything that he wasn't. And thus, he's able to, from that basis of misogyny and sexism, and bringing in his corporate framework, for which he uses as a prism, he is able to then deal with women. It's almost like a high school reunion sort of thing. Like people going to their high school reunion to show, hey, look what happened to me. I was the one who got bullied. I got pushed around by people. Now I'm a CEO and I'm worth billions of dollars. It's that kind of aspect that I get from Kevin Samuels on his show, because I'm speaking as a single guy. I don't have an issue with trying to categorize women and deal with women in that way, because I'm fine. I'm very happy as a bachelor. And so I don't need to go and I've never had the issues with the opposite sex. So I don't have to go, oh, you know what? You're a 5, you're a 3, you're this. I don't need that, because I don't have the issues and the problems with women. It's clear Kevin has issues and problems with women. I see it all the time. I see it on social media, where you see guys who call women every kind of name in the book. And I used to write, oh yeah, they can't get laid. And then I stopped saying that, because I realized you got these incels and you got these people. Some of them will act on their frustrations and their insecurities. And I realize, and I see that, and it's a sad thing. But I see that I mean, like I said, here's another thing I've noticed in my life. The game of love is not fair. Exactly. There are winners and there are losers. It's sad to say, but it's true. And men are, a lot of men are often losers. And it's a very sad thing. It's a terrible thing. There are men who want relationships and can't get it, which is what the incels are. They want relationships and they can't get it. And I have to admit, as somebody who didn't have the issues or doesn't have that problem, I find that sad. I find it terrible for them, but there's nothing I can do about it, obviously. But it's very clear when I look at Kevin Samuels. I'm like, oh, not only does he not like women, but he has all the traditional assumptions and positions and foundations. It's very clear. Otherwise, he talks about high value men, but you never hear him talk about high value women. Because a lot of the women on the show he holds to be low value women. Otherwise, he wouldn't be saying the things that he does. I mean, to me, the way I see it, personally, I don't understand why women would call a guy like him to get advice. I could understand them calling into your show, doctor, to get advice.
Exactly.
Because you're a psychotherapist. But I don't understand with him, like, what has he done to merit his opinion? He doesn't have degrees in psychology. He didn't go to med school and get an MD degree in psychiatry. He doesn't have any relationship credentials. Counselor credentials. How is this guy giving this advice? And he's not been nothing but in advertising. He's an image consultant for men.
Yeah,
go look at his website.
That's been his platform, and I think that the reality is this: these manosphere people don't understand that he's marketed to men without success before. He marketed to men by degrading women, and he found that he had a niche. So he said in this same interview, right? When you find something that you're good at, why not get paid for doing it? I mean, you guys go back and watch the whole thing. I don't want Vlad TV coming over here flagging my damn channel because he upset about me showing you guys the whole video. But it's not very long. Just this one. It's this one and another one, right? It's two of them that you're going to see just the content that I've talked about today in. So all of maybe 12 minutes out of your day to go listen to Kevin Samuels. He has shows for 3 hours. So you can do it.
And notice the interview he did on Vlad TV, how he was. Yeah. He wasn't like he is on his show. Very, very tight. Yeah. His body language. Well, I would encourage people to watch that interview and watch his body language. Look at the way he explains. He has to explain himself. Talk about deflection, the over explaining. It's fascinating. It's fascinating because it's a different Kevin Samuels. It's probably closer to reality than the one you get.
You said something earlier that was interesting. Do you believe that Kevin Samuels is an incel?
Do I?
Yes, you said incel behavior.
Okay. Yeah, do I believe he's an incel? Well, technically he wouldn't be because he's been supposedly married twice.
Okay.
So technically, you know he wouldn't be, according to what I understand of the definition of incel.
Do you know the definition of an incel?
But he could be. And from what I recall, I'm trying to remember the exact. But incels are individuals who are unable to achieve relationships.
That's not an incel.
That is an incel. Incels are individuals who want to be in relationships and are unable to.
No, that's not an incel. Incel stands for involuntarily celibate. That's what the word incel
That's what the word is. I'm talking about the definition of an incel.
The definition is a man who cannot get sex. Not a man, and when it's talked about in that,
cannot get relationships.
That's not an incel. That's not an incel. Incel has never been described. You don't need a relationship to get sex.
Okay,
incel is very specific on the definition.
In their case, they also want relationships.
So I'm just going to number guys just for a sec, and that way I can clear up. So I think that what Albert is saying, he's giving you the description of what an incel is. You're asking him what an incel is, and he's giving you a description of what they are. So the definition and the description are two different things. So essentially, it is a guy or a woman who is in a situation where they can't find themselves in a viable relationship that would render sex, or could easily be articulated as a person who cannot have sex, right? Because some people, their parts are just not working, anymore. But either way, involuntarily, they're placed in positions where they're not sexually active, right? And so it is what it is. Celibacy means that you're waiting for marriage anyway, but that's a pretty intentional thing. Involuntary celibacy is where you are forced to wait for marriage in hopes that would happen, but you find yourself unable to, find meaningful relationships that lead to sex. So now I'm going to unmute you guys and you can go back and forth.
You might have asked, do you know where the word incel came from? Which group of people
Do I know
created
where
that
the
word?
name came from? The word came from? I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm aware of where the word came from.
It came from the monk MGTOW community.
Not necessarily. It was
No,
Yeah, but
necessarily
it's
did it.
different from MGTOW.
so it was incorporated
Blame it.
in their community, but it's been around in English community. I'm Finnish American, by the way, so it's been around in the English community for ages. When my father would talk about people that had unfortunate faces, I'm going to use that.
Damn.
And as a result, they couldn't solidify their relationships with the women that they were looking to court, to vet, to marry, or whatever. And our country is a little different. Guys don't just go around just having sex freely like they do in America. So it's not a thing for them to just be promiscuous and think that because I'm a man, I can do these things. They typically want to save themselves for marriage because they don't want any bastard kids, because that's a centralized thing for us. Because we come from the days of the kings and the Vikings and etc. But they talk about there being a host of incels. Based off of the way they look. They can't find these women. They can't find the women that they would like to be with. They can't bed the women they would want to be with, even the women that are in brothels. And that's pretty sad.
Oh, geez. Wow.
But we don't have brothels here in America. There's not many of those. It's still legal.
I mean, you guys have.
Yes, there are.
I'm going to say like Kevin Samuels said this. I'm going to tell
not
you.
many.
I heard him say, if it's up, it's a market for everything. So it's a market for everything. I'm just going to put it out there. So lots of escorts. Escorts are legal prostitutes, essentially.
They're not legal. They're not legal. They're still illegal, but they are prostitutes.
No, because escorts can actually acquire business licenses for going on dates with men. They are legal prostitutes in the fact that they can market themselves in their full capacity legally. They can. You have escort websites. They have, their business licenses are intact. All they have to say is that the primary thing that they're selling is not sex.
And ask you if you're a cop, but other than that.
So,
new topic.
I'm just saying.
Well,
part way in family and then part way in America. So I kind of say from both, because I still have property there. My family house is there, and so I go back and forth.
But I mean, the point I was getting, I wouldn't describe most of the men who actually agree with Kevin Samuels, or even Kevin Samuels himself, as an incel. I mean, I understand we might have multiple definitions, but the way we interpret it in our space is a man who cannot get any relationships with any women, which incels more, as far as the word incels, more used in the white community than it is the black community, because in the black community, especially Black America, sex is readily available and not many men or women are not having it. It's not something that's very difficult to get.
For
as much as it,
let's say that for
my age group, yes, for the younger age group of Black Americans, it's not something that's not very frequent. You can walk down the street, slip on a banana peel, and fall into sex.
Right.
Easy.
Right. But the thing is, what happens over the course of human development, I'm telling you, your parts don't work like you want them to. And when they don't, like my sex therapy clients, I have lots of them that are males well into their 50s and 60s. And they're like, he won't write me. You can write me because you're MD. You can write me a prescription for at least Cialis. No, sir. If it don't work, it don't work. Sometimes you got to get with those components of your brain that are responsible for those synapses so that you can get yourself going. But you have to understand what you now need at this later phase of life. And so they're considered to be incels often, because if they find themselves single, they can't find women to be with them unless they're going to be with a woman only orally. You understand what I'm saying? And so they're not getting what they really want.
If you can attract a woman to the bed, but you can't perform, that technically doesn't make you an incel. You can still attract her to the bed. Not being able to perform properly makes you a 1 minute man, not an incel.
No. When I say your parts do not work, they do not work. So they never come to the party, not to show up to look at what kind of drinks you have, not to show up to see who's there, not to show up to see what type of entertainment you're having. Never. They just don't work.
Yeah, I'm still apparently I'm still young, so I'm not even gonna talk on that because I have no experience in that topic, like none. And you
Right.
talk to guys who
Well,
are older than me, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take your word for it.
Yeah, and it's
right.
it's unfortunate. It's sad to see them in that position, but it requires just men. And for all of the guys out here that may watch this that are currently going through erectile disorder, understand that the issue is larger than the physical component of your body. It's larger than just the sensate feelings, right, of arousal that may have worked for you in the past. And oftentimes it's due to the way that you conducted yourself in your younger years. Hypersexuality is an issue that men typically have an issue with, okay? Not women. All right? So when that person made that comment about women not being people who are more, you use polygamy, but polyamorous, women are naturally able to go along and continue to perform well into their 80s and 90s. Their vaginas still work. The only problems around here are men and their penises typically, okay? So the reality is men are, and when I said that there was a difference in men and women, men are they're more emotional than women, but they're less emotionally expressive. So women appear to be more emotional because they're emotionally expressive. And so over time, all of that pent up, emotional digression for me on the side of men is what plays into your inability to perform in those, moments that you need that to work. And it's hard. I know it's hard, but you can get it together.
Men
It
are not
must
allowed to
be
express their
hell
emotions.
for such men. It really must be, not just the incels, but anyone who wants to be in a relationship or wants that physical aspect and can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
because I'm in my 50s and I'm just, my belief is like, okay, you got to move on to other things. There's nothing wrong with, the ladies and being interested, but you got to get older. You got to move on to other things. You can't be the young guy always. You can't be the guy always looking for dates, always looking to get in relationships. You can't always be that guy. You have to move on. That's why you have hobbies, you have interests, you have other things, retirement, whatever else. You can't just be the guy who has the ladies on the brain, so to speak, as I would call it, ladies on the brain.
Can I ask both of you a question, since you both are older than me? Since you're both older, and the gentleman to the right of my screen, I don't know if he's to the right, he's on the right of the other screen, but you guys, you are 50 years old, right? And what Kevin Samuels and a lot of these men talk about in these spaces, me included, tends to be people who are kind of younger age, a younger demographic, still within the dating market as far as the current dating market, and still dealing with the changes that comes with the cultural changes, as culture changes, as society changes, dealing with those changes. And speaking to that, we understand you have your experiences as an older gentleman. I think you're a Gen X, right? Millennials and Gen Zs, they're gonna have different experiences. And I would like to respectfully say this, if you're a Gen X or if you're a boomer, you're gonna have to respect the fact that their experiences are not the same. Just like your experience in the dating market was not the same as your parents. We have to accept the fact that as time progresses, the societal norms progress. Like I'm pretty sure back in your day, you would never have to talk about trannies on the dating market. That's something serious out here for me. You have to make sure.
No.
I think that's right. You guys
that's a whole
are
other story though.
Yeah, because transsexuals have been out forever. Just as
but I mean, it's prevalent on the day to the point you gotta ask for it. You gotta
prevalent in Europe. So in America, you guys have had more people that shied away from talking about it. Doesn't mean it wasn't in existence.
Okay. Well, then again, I wasn't around during your time. I was still, still playing with my ball and doing kids stuff. So I don't know what was happening. All I know is what's happening in my situation.
That's a little
I was a kid, I had a red ball, like my red ball. Don't judge me. Hell.
I
There's
feel
a
like,
little too much information there.
but no, I mean, I feel like this is the thing. I feel like oftentimes people have misconceptualizations that the age of the people matter. But when Kevin Samuels talks, he's talking from the generation of dating. So you're right, cultural and societal norms have shifted to accept certain things, right, about society. However, have they really? Because the reality is society has shifted and many women are very hypersexual in America. Women have always been the point of contention. If you go to East Asian society, all the way back to the 1300s, all the way up to now, the way that they engage in rituals around reproduction, it's completely different. It's polyandrous, so it's completely different from what you guys would consider to be acceptable here, because you guys think that that's a terrible thing for a woman to be having sex with multiple men. Period. They got a whole different thing out here, a whole ritual where this woman's marrying the whole line of sons. Make sure she gets the younger one when this one's penis stops working. But no, seriously,
Right.
Yeah.
That
women,
seems tied into reproduction, like
it is. It's about
essentially producing children and so forth.
success,
So that's
right?
more
So it's about
pragmatic.
success and reproduction.
Right.
Making
But
sure
you
get the best
don't hear black men, especially black men. We're talking about black men here, but you don't hear black men talking about so much as body count as you hear them talking about children or weight. There's other issues. Black men have pretty much accepted the fact that we are in a sexually liberated society. That's not something you would hear in the spaces Kevin Samuels frequents. Is all these women have high body counts? That's something black men have just, okay, we're gonna let that sit over there. We're not even gonna make that an issue. Because nobody. I mean, I've never even complained about women's body counts. It's something they're gonna do what they're gonna do. You can't control another person. That's not really an issue as much as other topics. So
I agree.
promiscuous women is something that's just out there.
So I agree to a certain point. Kevin Samuels was on a show and he was interviewing, and there's this guy there. It's a white guy interviewing, and then there's a black guy interviewing. The black guy makes a point of contention when Kevin Samuels was talking about people entering into relationships where kids are a part of the deal, right? Or making decision as to what they qualify for, right? In their relationships, right? So this guy, he mentions, he was like, well, I'm a male and I have 2 kids by 2 different women. Okay. And then Kevin Samuels is like, he was finishing up because he was in the middle of his point about being in a church and seeing a woman who has 2 kids sitting on the pew and they're by different men. Not sure how he would know that. But he never corrected the male who came in and interjected and said, I'm a man and I have 2 kids by 2 different women. And if those women had positioned themselves differently, then they would have made me marry them. And I would like to see families where women make it a standard that men marry them before having kids with them. So Kevin Samuels overlooked that opportunity to make his point valid, because his next point would have been valid had he said, you know what? I agree. He said, no. He said, but women, when they have kids, multiple kids, you got 2 kids sitting on this pew, and then you're also pregnant. Like, I'm pretty sure that it's another person that's the father of that kid. Nobody wants to walk into a situation like that. So the same energy that he had about that woman is the same energy he should have had with that man. Because let me tell you something. I talk to people all the time about the standards of their living and how that contributes to their outcomes. If you're talking about the pragmatics of it, it doesn't matter if it's a male or female. Having children is sometimes it's a no-brainer. It's a deal breaker for some people, because some people never want to be parents ever. Less alone try and be parents to another person's child that doesn't like you, and then you got 2 baby mamas in the scenario. Like, nah. Not doing that.
Well, it really depends, because I think men and women, they both have. I don't think there's any double standards in the dating market. I think there's no such thing as a double standard. I think there's 2 separate standards. Men have their group of standards. Women have their group of standards. We both look for different things in our mates. So I don't think it's his place to even say what women would desire more or less. I don't think that's his place, because he's not a woman. I think women better to speak on how, like you just spoke on it. That you will be better to speak on what a woman how a woman would feel about a man with kids than he would.
But
because she's not a woman.
He said several times that it's a different thing for men because men are not tethered to the lives of those children. That was his justification. But
Well,
men
that's the way women look at it. I have kids and have kids and women don't seem to care.
Women don't look at it like that. If they're trying to marry you one day, if they're trying to have something long term with you one day, there are certain questions they're going to ask about the way you're positioned in your situation when you have kids. No woman, period, at all, wants to be with a man that's already had children with another woman. The same way that men have the energy that they don't want to be with a woman that has already had kids with another man, it's even worse when it comes to men having kids with women, because typically you're in America, sir. Women put men on child support for just blowing the wind in their direction, and they didn't want nobody messing up their hair. So you're a black man in America. That's even a further statistic that says that baby mamas will get custody of the kids. You'll be made to pay child support for the kid, and you'll never see the kid. And as a result, then you'll become disrespectful towards women. And as a result, that's going to affect the way that you operate in the relationship with her. And then if she supports you and you're not taking care of your kid or physically seeing your kid, attending to the psychosocial conditioning of your kid, she's less of a woman because she has society looking at her like, how could you be with this man? And he ain't even seen his kids in 10 years. No.
Well, she has all the power to keep the kid away. That's America. But at the same time, you just pointed out you just pointed out how women feel about it. And I'm not going to disagree with you. But earlier in the stream, you did say Kevin Samuels was wrong, and he shouldn't make the point that men can feel the way they feel about it, which what you just said kind of echoes the way Kevin said that way men feel about children. Like I said earlier, I have kids, and I wouldn't date a woman with kids.
So if he's consistent across the board, being consistent and being wrong are two different things.
But he can't speak on women. He's not a woman.
He can speak on what he speaks on women every day. Like
he doesn't speak on what they desire. He doesn't speak on their standards for men.
But he does. He has a whole evaluation system for men and women. He tells men how they can achieve the outcome that women want every single day, just like he does with women. He just knows that he's not going to get as much support because he said on this interview that men are the primary supporters of the financiers of his show. He's always catered to men. And so he's not going to put those things out as his shows he releases on YouTube, because guess what? You think if I'm, belittling men, you know what I mean, and getting all this pushback and I'm in an argument with a man, do you think it's going to give me as much support from these men who are supporting my channel and its growth? Women have already said screw me in my insights for being mean to them. So it's not like I can replace the money with the women.
Okay, you're right. I'm not finna say Kevin Samuels doesn't attack men, because me and Kevin Samuels went at it a couple times. It was me, Kevin Samuels, Obsidian, Taz, the Grinch. They all came at me for having multiple kids, for having 2 kids. So I went at it with them. So I'm not gonna say he doesn't, but it wasn't on the topic as so much what women desire. Because we try to we have general truth about what women desire. We understand general truth, but as the whole, we understand that women are more prone to accept a man with kids than men are, and I'm living proof of that. I got kids, and any woman I've ever dated never said, "Oh, kids are a deal breaker," or nor have any woman ever dated said, "Oh, you got kids, I'm not gonna have any more with you." I mean, the girl I'm with right now wouldn't mind having my kids. I ain't having no kids with her, but she wouldn't mind having any with me, even though I already got them. As for me, it's vice versa. I wouldn't even date a woman with kids.
But see, that's the thing. So you said date. So there is a difference in dating. And I already mentioned that this is a generation that believes in serial dating, hypersexuality, sexual freedom, liberation, all that good stuff. So a woman, just like a man, you say these things thinking men are their dating practices are exclusive to males, but women will date a man without the intent of marrying him. every day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many kids he has. He's not going to one day become my husband and I got to deal with the baby mama drama. He's not one day going to become my cohabitator that's responsible for providing for me. And as a result of him paying child support, I'm struggling and I got to work now when I was expecting him to provide for us. These are things that matter because at the end of the day, his kids are not over there. When I go over there and the kids are there, then we got a problem.
I mean, most women nowadays don't even want to be married. I mean, the marriage statistics show that. And so it's not. We're like I said earlier to both of you guys are older. We're in a different generation where most of these women under 30 years old have no intentions of getting married.
I agree.
If you were to take in Black community, I think the marriage rating is like 30% of us are married. If you were to take the older generation out of that, the people say above 40 years old, imagine how low that number would drop. I would say it dropped to single digits. That
has nothing, but that's what I'm saying. That goes more to what I was saying earlier today. And that's the fact that women see themselves more so as the equal versus a person who is supposed to be protected and provided for by the man and that sort of thing. So their positioning is different. Education is different. The insight level is different. And so are the rules of the game different, but the game has not changed. The game is still the game. The woman still has those same basic expectations of a man. The problem is she does not have faith in that the man will be able to provide that because men are hypersexual. They have multiple baby mamas. They got multiple things out here. Some of them still staying with their mama, never left the house. Some of them don't even have a reliable source of transportation. These are things that I hear Black women complain about when they talk about possibly moving into a relationship and seating themselves inside of a relationship where they're now tethered to a man and they're like, listen, there are not many straight options out here. Because the other point of contention, I think somebody asked me, would I ever find myself in a relationship with a man that had a bisexual encounter or something in the past? That's a huge issue. Yeah. So that's a huge issue for a lot of women. And it's an issue because they're gauging what their viability or sustainability in a relationship with a man is monogamous or at least committed to them, right? Mm-hmm. In their marriage, they're gauging what the propensity for divorce is going to be based on a person stepping out and what would that look like. They're bracing themselves for impact because this is a real thing happening every single day because essentially men are out here in the closet and then the skeletons come tumbling down as soon as the woman goes in there just for a coat to go out in the winter snow. And at the end of the day, she doesn't want to be taken off, knocked off kilter because she wasn't ready for the brace of the impact that, oh my God, this guy has whole male on male experiences. And the reality is this, oftentimes, just like people are calling Kevin Samuels gay right now, right? As a result of this man showing up in his bed and him lying about it. The reality,
calling him gay before that.
Even if I know that, but I'm saying that's what they're using as confirmation. So even if he is having sex with males, it doesn't mean that he's gay. He's had sex with women and he has a daughter, like she's in college, doesn't have anything to do with him for her own reasons.
I don't even think that. I mean, I don't even know if that's his biological daughter. I remember him saying he dated single. He dated a single mother before.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
I can confirm that. There are certain things about Kevin Samuels that I can definitely confirm. But like I said, I'm not here for a smear campaign. I got shitloads of receipts because people have been asking me to come out and put this stuff out here about him because they know that my channel is 100% about accountability. But the things that I want to hold Kevin Samuels accountable for have nothing to do with his personal life. And I have personally respect for people's personal life, especially when it comes to what brings marriages to an end and what cause issues with parents and their children, because those are very sensitive and traumatizing issues that are at the center of why a Kevin Samuels exists in the Black community in the first place.
Right.
Well, it's why you get a Derek Jackson as well, or as you get any of these so-called black dating coaches. I think the reason why so many black women are gravitating to Kevin Samuels is because all the other stuff hasn't worked for them.
I agree.
And I mean, if you really have nobody to blame but the other people who were giving out dating advice to Black America, none of it's paid off.
I think that people should take accountability, not blame anybody, because it's nobody else's fault. Everything in life happens for a reason. Whether you fail in your first relationship, your second relationship, your third relationship, you could fail in 18 relationships and then have the key to success, and then go forth in that next relationship, in that 19th relationship, and stay married until the day you die, and happily so. So it's not about, I think people got to look at marital distress and the separation and divorces of marriages as not an end all be all. Look at them as an evolutionary cycle of behavior, just like the human developmental process. You are developing constantly. You're constantly in a position of evolution. So you're not even the same version of you that you were yesterday, even though you may think you are. When you do your work on yourself, you will recognize that there were experiences that you had yesterday, day before yesterday, the day before that fed into the greater level of insight in which you operate in life off of. So at the end of the day, it's not about that piece. Okay, it's really about just understanding that people will be who they are, and the content of their character will lead their success or their failure in a relationship. Kevin Samuels does not talk to that. He talks about the fact that their older content of their character that may have led to them becoming a baby mama, baby daddy, whatever, right, is the thing that tells them whether or not they're qualified for future successes in relationship. And that's just not true, because people don't stay stuck. We know from the human developmental process that most people evolve out of previous states of being, and eventually they can see the issues that caused discord or led to the decisions that they made that led them into certain positions in life. Children are not a mistake. Having sex out of wedlock is not a mistake. It's a learning experience. It's an opportunity to learn how to value yourself, if you're going to value yourself in a different way tomorrow. It's about taking the lessons from your experiences and applying them in your new experiences in the today, not projecting too far into your future, not also dwelling on your past, because it's irrelevant. It's already done.
I mean, that's all good and dandy, but I mean, at the same time, whether she learned from the experience or not, the fact is the kid is still there. And the fact is men can make the decision not to date her because the kid is there. And many men do make that decision not to take a woman seriously because the kid is there. The kid is not something that goes away with time. And actually with time, as the kid gets older, it probably becomes more of a problem. If I was to ever, unfortunately, have to date a single mother, I wouldn't want to do it when her kid's a teenager, because that's when she goes through the most problems with the kid, and I don't want to go through those problems. So yeah, I agree with you. A lot of life experiences are learning experiences, but a lot of those learning experiences do come with consequences.
Everything in life comes with consequences.
And you gotta deal with them.
Everything.
One last thing I will note. One last thing I will note is the final component with Kevin Samuels, and I think this is one of the reasons he's popular, but it's also the major criticism against him is that his style is confrontational and punitive.
Exactly.
It's about having someone come up and state what they want, what they want, and B, why they want it. And in Kevin's response is like that of a judge. Well, this is what the law as I interpret it. This is the law. This is the law as I interpret it. And based on what I've seen in this case, I render this judgment. And so part of that is rendering a judgment on said woman. And so that's why it's popular, because a lot of men and even a number of women watch this, and they like it because it's simplistic to a certain extent. It's something they understand. Yeah. They understand thesis and antithesis clashing with each other. They understand clash. They understand confrontation. And they also understand judgment. If you watch enough of these judge shows, you have two competing parties. It doesn't matter what the judge show is. They dispute over something. the judge admonishes one or both and renders a verdict. That basic formula is a part of the formula is part of the Kevin Samuels approach. It's not a judge show per se, but it's that basic aspect. And that's part of the success. It's punitive and it is confrontational. If he wasn't punitive and he wasn't confrontational, he wouldn't have gone viral. He wouldn't have been he wouldn't be successful, and no one would know him. That's
Albert,
what is.
You're a genius, bro. You are a freaking genius. I swear to God, I'm gonna email Kevin tomorrow. I'm gonna let him know he needs to get a gavel. Every time he hangs up on a girl, hit the gavel. Pow, it's on the table. I would die laughing. I mean, the stuff is entertaining.
Yeah, seriously,
I didn't mean to give any ideas.
but no, like seriously, that's what it is, and that's the thing. And this is why it holds so much weight, because you got to understand who are the people that are calling into his show. When I say accountability on all parts, what I mean is that these people that are calling into his show also have to equally be held accountable. Like oftentimes I've seen young women who have told me that as a result of listening to Kevin Samuels, having a direct interview with him, they felt suicidal. For me, that's when Kevin Samuels became a problem. When I saw at least 15 of those girls back to back within the same week. So for me, when you're making my work harder for me, because people are already having a tough enough time with COVID-19 and adjusting to the irrational requests of everybody around them in society, when that one person says the standard is to this, have a temperature check and this other person saying that, well, you got to have on a mask, and this other person saying that, no, you can't wear a mask in this area. Take your mask off here, or take your mask off at this point. And people are having xenophobia and all of these other issues that are causing extreme anxiety, right? So when I see that this is what's happening, and as a result, is this guy, this dude.
Yeah.
You weigh your opinion of yourself as less because of what he said. Like it's his. I'm sorry. Is he your father or something? Like is he the person that raised you, gave you your sense of being? Like, help me understand.
I'm sorry. I have no empathy for those women. I have no empathy for women in general who feels bad because they learn something about the dating market that they don't like.
But I don't think it's about, they're not learning anything about the dating market that they don't like. So Kevin Samuels made it very, very clear. And I'm going to say this again, because the reality is American men are not even a third of the men in the world. That's the reality. American men, American black men, let's even go one further. They don't account for enough men in society that are straight and looking for a wife. So Kevin Samuels and his algorithms about what is success and what's goal and what people in the dating market are looking for, right? Those expectations are irrational. You're talking about black women. Black women are, you got a whole nation of Africa, 400 different nations in a continent that are out here looking for black women, black American women. And are you serious? Are you serious? Let's make this make sense. Okay. So when you now talk about these things, that this is a misogynistic continent, they would prefer a woman that doesn't want to work. Yeah. You know why? Because their women now feel vindicated and they feel like it's time for them to make their rise and start doing their own thing. They would prefer a woman that's overweight, considered to American standards, right?
Well, who in Africa?
Things. Lots of African men.
In African nations.
Lots of African men. Lots of African nations. You know how many? Do you know how many people I provided not only therapy but medical resources for, and all of that while I was in Africa? And that's in 14 different countries in Africa while I was there over 10-year time span. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I can come with the many facts of the African American men that have now gotten their citizenship here. They have a preference, and it's not thin women. It's not the standard that Kevin Samuels is going out of. I'm retired Army, sweetheart. So
I can give you the facts right now to prove that's incorrect. I can tell you right verbatim. Verbatim.
Right ahead.
As far as African men having some large desire for overweight women, that's false.
Overweight women based off of Kevin Samuels' weight index. that is outdated because it's 99.
Okay. Well, based off of the world's weight index, as far as how much
Kevin Samuels said a woman that is 5'11" and 160 pounds is overweight.
No, that's not overweight. I don't remember him ever saying that. But based on 80% of Black American women are either obese or overweight. That's a fact. That's non-debatable. That's not when you could call them European standards all you want, but based off that same index,
these are American standards formulated by the CDC and the World Health Organization as well, but they're inundated. They're from the 90s, literally. But also in the military.
What does the 90s have to do with us doing what? Wait,
because there's a reason for that.
What does the 90s have to do with it, with over 30% of your body fat being if over 30% of your body weight is fat, you are obese. That has nothing to do with the 90s.
So correct.
Our biology hasn't changed that much in the 90s.
No, if your tape measures out, then you're not considered to be obese. So the weight and height standards are meant to then go against proportionality. So we tape you after we weigh you and we've taken your height. So that's the reason that the military operates the way it does, because we put people out of the military if they're overweight. It's a standard. It's a whole thing. But guess what? You could be 150 pounds and be 5'4", and you're still not going to get kicked out, even though the standard is 128. You know why?
Well,
because
you take muscle
you have the right, waist index, bust index, hip index, and everything lines up and it's proportionate, you still meet the standard, because there is a science to it. There is a science.
Yeah, there is a science to it, but the science is not. But nobody's disagreeing there's a science to it. But you cannot disagree that most Black American women are obese.
I can't say that. I can't say that that's accurate or inaccurate. There are more young Black women that are not obese than older Black women that have stepped into their older age and then post-menopause, and as a result have hypothyroidism, and then that's a natural thing that comes with weight gain. I can't speak to that being a fact.
Well, Black Americans have the highest rate of childhood obesity as well. More of our children are extremely overweight than other groups of people. So it's not just the older generation.
I won't say that either.
You won't.
No, because it's
when
not.
You walk down the street in the Black community.
I can't say that because obesity is a childhood thing now. It's not limited to the Black American population, and it has nothing to do, if you hear what I'm saying. That's why I make the reference to the 90s versus now. If you look at the food, there are a lot of things in your food that is not natural in your food. And you consume these things anyway. There are a lot of very unnatural things and a lot of the inoculations that you people take, but you still continue to do it and make complaints about it later. So if you want proportionality, if you want pragmatics when it comes to your weight and things like that, there's a lot of stress on the society that you guys inflict on your own society, your own condition. And that exactly, a lot of hormones, not a little, a lot. And that contributes to weight gain. But I'm gonna say this: it's the food more so than the standard. But if your standard of food by your FDA approved.
But getting back to the original point about African men liking fat women,
go ahead. Not fat women. They like women who are heavier. I mean, I could call a couple of them. We could.
You can call a couple of them, you won't, but if that was the standard in Africa, then most of them will not be reproducing with African women. Because
most African women they're actually overweight. Overweight.
No, they're not. No, they're not. The two smallest continents in the world is Asia.
Standards.
Okay, based on the same standards we're using here, is Asia and Africa. The fattest country in Africa is South America. South Africa, which ironically has the most white people in it.
No, West Africa has the heaviest women, and Cameroon.
South Africa's heavy women's approaching 40%. So I don't know, and even in South Africa, where it's approaching 40%, still nowhere close to the 50% here in America. So, and from the data I looked at, now it could be a little outdated, but as far as the countries in Africa, none of those.
I'm talking about going there. Immerse yourself in the culture. Go visit and look around and see what you see.
Well, I've immersed myself in the culture I've immersed myself in the culture very deeply. I've dated Nigerian women. I've dated Somalian women, Liberian women. I've been with a woman who's from South Africa, part of the Zulu tribe. My child's mother is Nigerian, a
You
Robu.
say a woman.
So, yeah, a woman. And okay, let me put it this way. I'm from Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
We have the second largest African immigrant population in America. So I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I do get somewhat immersed in their culture. They're freaking everywhere in the Twin Cities. I mean, I've eaten their food. I've done it all. I hate fofo. I mean, fufu, whatever the fuck it's called. That little dough shit.
Yeah.
Not good. But yeah. So they're not a group of large women. They're very small people. They're shorter.
No, they're not.
They're muscular.
I'm gonna call
No,
it quits, considering where this conversation has gone. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your insight.
Thank you. Thanks for your input. But yeah, no.
I'm gonna jump off too, but bro, it was a good show. Thank you for letting me out.
No problem. You guys take care. But so the thing is this, there are lots of comparisons made as far as like what a woman should weigh and what a woman should not weigh. Kevin Samuels is not a person that should be weighing in on that if he is not a woman. What he can weigh in on is the standards of being a man, simply because being a man comes with different standards. It comes with different health standards. It comes with different standards altogether. If he's giving women advice on how to attain this high value man that he says that these women want, then Kevin Samuels has to be transparent about his sexual orientation. So if he prefers to have sex with men and women, he should be able to say that, and he should be able to openly say that, okay? Not hint around to the fact that he needs protections from the LGBTQIA plus community. I'm here for 100% accountability, people. 100% accountability. We talked about at the very end of that conversation, African women. Let me tell you something about African men. And we're talking about a very misogynistic perceived continent. Now, Africa is not without its trials and its tribulation and things like that, and its issues with their men. But one thing that you will never hear an African man or even a Jamaican man do is devalue their women, regardless of what their women has done, regardless of what their women do every day, on an everyday basis, consistently, that does or does not contribute to their overall gain. They will not go on a public platform and they will not tear down their women because they have a high valuation for their women, period. It's about respect. And it's just with Kevin Samuels, he has all of these issues with these women because he's had negative experiences. It's fine to have negative experiences that drive the level of insight that you use to, push this information out there and give people relationship advice. But what you're not going to do is make people devalue self because you have a lesser valuation for them than they have of themselves. That's not fair. Okay. Sorry, but my producer is doing a lot of stuff. Exactly. And that's my thing. Like for me, I feel like sometimes we take these social antics and we try to apply them across the boards just so that we could go after a person and devalue them. My problem with Kevin Samuels is that you have an issue with people coming after you, calling you gay and talking about the evidence that has now been presented that obviously you like to have sex with men or sleep with men or have men in your bed or whatever it is. But you don't want to be ridiculed for the advice that you're rendering to these women and the perception, your opinion of these women, right? Not being what they see of themselves. So the thing is, when we're clinically seeing people, we don't tell them that, hey, you know what? Because you have bipolar disorder, I'm the expert in your life. I'm the expert in your situation. That's the difference between going to a clinician and then going to a person on the street or calling in to Kevin Samuels' show. I can tell you the things that are in your behaviors, your interactions with other people in different systems and different, scenarios that drive me to understand clinically that the conceptualization is this is the disorder that you're dealing with every day. It doesn't mean that you, the person, is any less valuable than when you came in the door. Understand that. So when you're out here devaluating women and attacking women because you've had negative experiences with women because you were not properly seated when you got married, and the women that you wanted left you because you could not provide, that is a you issue, Kevin Samuels. So I'm going to need you to come to the table and be more transparent, because what you did is, in this interview, I saw you very uncomfortable. You were very evasive. And then he deflected the conversation. So there are some things that I feel like he's got to be accountable for. And you people that are a part of the manosphere, that guy is a part of the manosphere. Like, if you're a part of the manosphere, what is it? Manosphere or field? Or fear? Manosphere?
Manosphere.
Okay, so you're a part of the manosphere. Manosphere. Then you should want him to be held accountable. Because then I'm like, sir, I have been donating, financing you, giving you all my money. I need to know, are you gay? And just setting me up for failure because you don't want me to be in a heterosexual relationship, because that's going to cause some level of distress some way or the other of you getting back at Black women. I don't know. You said, it still strikes me as odd that a guy like Samuels, who is admitted college dropout with no credentials or counseling background, set himself up to be an expert on relationships to women. I agree. Like, when I tell you, I think that it's just these pieces of the puzzle. Like, you guys got to fit together. Like, literally, just these, the basic stuff. Make it make sense to me. I know that you guys were sending a lot of stuff out there. The Whole World channel made the comment, is not having kids out of wedlock an option ever? Well, I'm a person that believes that everybody should, have their perceptions that drive their interactions with other people, but they have to make sense. And so I think for some people in American Western culture has a different standard of setting yourself up for success in the relationships. And that happens to not be one of them. So I don't know, I think that if that's something that you would prefer, very much like the one guy on that interview said, if those women that he had those 2 kids out of wedlock with had positioned themselves to be married, then he would have had to marry them, right? And so I don't know if he was saying that he would be married to both of them or what, but I don't know. Maybe one of them and only have the one kid. Who knows? So, any Black thought without the backing of non-Black credentials irrelevant? I don't know what you mean. Oh, okay. So you're asking that question about the credentials component. So I think that there are some things, right, that we can call opinion, okay? And opinion comes without the background empirical research to back it, and that's peer-supported journals and people that do dissertations. They like to write books and stuff like that about different societal shifts and norms and things about culture and that kind of stuff, and then they want you to read the whole book, right? I'm an MD. We're of a different, I'll take those 18-hour days over any day, of writing. And then defending a dissertation, it's a lot of work. My head goes off to those folks. But I feel like there are some things that we should chump up or just say that, okay, this is an opinion. So these are my opinions. For example, if you guys see my intro, When Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson comes up, right? It says that these are my personal opinions, although some of it may have clinical data, right? It doesn't replace you going to have a therapist of your own who is able to kind of assess your position on a more intimate level and give you a good understanding of what you're going through, because I can only see what's on the surface, right? So, and the same goes for all of this. Essentially, when we're looking at the behaviors of people, we're only looking at their behaviors in one or two domains that we have access to. There are several other domains of functionality that people are operating in that we can't see what they look like. We can't see what their personality looks like. For all I know, Kevin Samuels only acts this way when he's out in public and he knows that people can see him on dates with women, because that's where I've seen him physically. But when he's in other situations, he doesn't behave that way. And like I said, when I saw him on the one date with a really young girl, she had on a white coat. Oh, God, where was that? Some kind of a benefit or something. I can't remember, but that's what she had on. Okay. And he looked uncomfortable. He looked like he knew he was out of his league. He looked like he knew that this girl was obviously only on a date with him for clout. And I know there was a lot of phone play in his phone or her phone. I don't know. But the point is, he knew that he was being used for something. He had his end game and she had hers. He's a dude that apparently likes to pay for escorts. And at the same time, in the same space, we talk about Kwame Brown, and Kwame Brown mentioned that Tommy Sotomayor pays for women for sex too. I think that when they're paying for sex, they're paying for the discretion, or so they think. Somebody won't find out or something. Nobody's going to see him creeping in the dark, middle of the night, picking up women. Who knows? But whatever. This is what I feel. I feel that Kevin Samuels is not the right person to be rendering advice to these young women, because, like I said, at that age, you're very impressionable. There are certain areas of your developmental sequence that are taking place during those ages for these young women. And life is about the evolutionary cycle of development, and we're evolving into our personality and who we are at that phase. So oftentimes, if people have had issues with developing fully into their next phase of development, then those people are going to be very vulnerable for people like Kevin Samuels. And we have to pay close attention to that. So when we say the demise of Western culture or Black families and all of these things is due to women being unrealistic or women doing this or women doing that, we're doing injustice to our community of people, because everybody has a part to play in accountability. Said it depends on what the guy's definition of positioning themselves to marry for the woman who he had kids with. I don't know. I just know that he said that if they had positioned themselves to where he had to marry them, then maybe the outcomes would have been different and he wouldn't have two baby mamas or whatever. But to a point, I guess the guy has a point, because men will only do what you allow them to do. Same thing. Women will only do what you allow them to do. If you show that your worth is your pockets and that's it, you don't have any other character, you don't have any other characteristics that are of value, then that's kind of how she's going to value you. So that means you can't get upset when she's out here having sex with another guy, because the value of him is in his penis. Likewise, women, if you're listening to Kevin Samuels and you're thinking, oh, well, my value lies within the way I look. But as soon as, you go out here and you get all these surgeries done and you look like the ideal woman or whatever for them, and now you're in a relationship with them, but now they're out there banging Sue because Sue has got her sense of self together. She knows how to attenuate herself fully to a relationship, or she knows how to add value and to increase his net worth by, giving him the confidence and the peace that he needs in his walk in life. If she knows how to give him the proper advisement so that he feels fulfilled in the way that you are leaving holes and pockets of things uncovered in a relationship, then you can't get mad, because he's out there doing exactly what it is that you decided was important, making his money. But he's also doing those other things that Kevin Samuel says that men should be doing, called exercising their options. I don't know. I like the way the guy says that, right? Exercising his options.
Yeah.
Exercising his options. Right. Exercising his. Come on. Be real, people. Kevin Samuels. I'm not gonna. God. Boy. I need to start putting this information out there. I'm not going to tear Kevin Samuels down. Just his logic, you guys. But let me tell you something. When a person is deflecting, when a question like that comes up, it typically means that there is some truth to it. Or there is something, right, that people see as valuable, you know, in the information that a person has on them. Okay, Kevin Samuels is a very interesting person, and he is also equally a very private person. And there are reasons, I guess, that people move the way they do around him. Um, this isn't really a thing. I agree. I agree. But they don't. So let me make this clear. Black American people do not consider themselves a part of Caribbean or African people. They're a separate and indistinctive component in and of themselves. To be honest with you, people from America and Caribbean people, African people, like you just mentioned, right? They're not Black Africans. They're just African. Why? Because in these countries, every other country other than America, race doesn't exist. Only culture. That's it. That's it, people. That's it. Your culture is American. Period. Point blank. That's it. But so Black America has a long-standing history of being very confused about what came before them. And as a result, they look for all types of issues and they try to look for the breakdown and who's responsible for that, who's responsible. I'm going to point the finger here, but never itself, and figure out how could I come out of this position and better myself. I talk about accountability, people. 100% accountability. That's it. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. We have to be accountable for the things that are happening in our society. It's us. It's us. That's it. So a woman's self-worth development process starts long, long before larger society perceives. Exactly. I agree. It does. But that those integral phases of development where we enter into identity crisis, both women and men, have a huge component in the fight when you have somebody who is constantly putting you down. That's why we talk about emotional trauma. That's why we talk about emotional abuse. Hello. In abusive relationships, that's what y'all are in with Kevin Samuels. And you're okaying it. You're okaying it. Exactly. That's it. I'm from such and such tribe in such and such country. I'm either Igbo, Nigerian, Yoruba, Nigerian. You understand what I'm saying? So it's not, why does America have to do all this extra stuff? You're just all one people. That's it. That's all, you folks. Like, that's all I got. You guys go out there and make better choices than you made yesterday. I want to give a huge shout out to the chat room because you guys have been absolutely fantabulous. I hope you guys have liked and shared this content. However, because I am trying to grow my platform on this platform, simply because I do want my YouTube to kind of blow a little bit up, like I've blown up on my podcast and things like that. But anyway, follow me anywhere that you listen to podcasts or radio. Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson is all me. Also, I have a separate one that's Love and Intimacy, where I focus on people getting themselves more in alignment with their outcome, being love-based or pragmatic-based or seated towards marriage, and becoming more intimate with themselves and other people around them. So not only in the physical, where we talk about sex, right, but also emotionally intimate, which is also something that can help you guys with erectile disorder. yeah, I'm here for it, you guys. I'm trying to help you out. I'm trying to do what I can do my part. But as always, I love you guys. And I am a phenomenon. Literally, I'm in a league of my own. So thank you guys for checking out the show. Thank you guys for contributing with your insights and also your comments in the chat. You guys are friggin' fantastic. Later days.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.